Chapter 8:13. Old House. In the courtyard. Osmanthus flowers were fragrant in October, but there was a golden osmanthus tree in the courtyard that bloomed a little late. It was only deep into winter that it emitted that frightening rich fragrance. General Xing knelt under the golden osmanthus tree, resisting the invasion of the fragrance while enduring the blows from the feather duster. Pa! General Xing was hit on the head. Pa! The feather duster hit his skull again. Pa! After a dozen or so lashes, old man Shifu threw the feather duster in his hand onto the ground. He walked to the stone table and sat down. He picked up a cup of tea that was still steaming and took a sip. Do you know why I didn't slap your face? Jiang Shifu held the teacup and asked General Xing, who was kneeling there. Because you're afraid that you'll ruin your face and your grandson won't be able to go out and meet people? General Xing said in a low voice. Just don't hit people in the face. I've always told you this. Why don't you listen? The cherishing fortune old man said with a face full of regret. What you're doing isn't just slapping the Qin clan's face. You're practically stepping on their heads and shitting on them. This is a huge mistake that will cause them to become enemies. Grandpa, I know I was wrong. This matter, I really had no other choice. General Xing straightened his spine and looked straight into old man Jiang Shifu's eyes, saying, I really like Jun Ling, and she has deep feelings for me. The two of us are sincerely in love. I know what I'm doing is wrong, and I've thought about leaving her. But Lord Jun didn't agree. I was soft-hearted and couldn't make a decision. Originally, I wanted to wait until Lord Jun got married before completely severing our relationship. I didn't expect something like this to happen. Scoundrel! Jiang Shifu slammed his palm on the stone table and angrily shouted, What do you mean unable to restrain yourself? You're too daring for lust. You clearly knew that Li Junling was already engaged to the Qin family, yet you still dared to tempt him to do such an immoral thing. If the Qin family did this to our Jiang family, how would you deal with it? The hatred of killing my father and stealing my wife is absolutely irreconcilable. Now is the crucial moment in the battle between you and Fang Yan. In order to prevent the Qin family from participating in the battle, we offered a huge condition, but what was the result? Not only did you fail to balance your relationship with the Qin family, you even dragged the Qin family down with you. If a man can't control his own waistband, what future can he have? Old man Shifu's gaze turned sharp. He looked at General Xing and said, Do you think that, now that the military order is gone, I have no other candidates? Is that why you are so unbridled? Let me tell you, General, we still have many outstanding youths in the General family. With just a bit of polishing, they are all good materials. Grandpa, I'm sorry. General Xing's knees were pressed against the cold concrete floor as he said in a deep voice, I know I did something wrong. I will definitely find a way to make it up to you. I promise I'll take care of this. How are you going to deal with this? Old man cherishing fortune asked as he looked at General Xing. General Xing hesitated slightly, but still said frankly, since it's already happened, it's already impossible for us to reconcile with the Qin family. Since it's like this, it's better to take the initiative and drag them into the quagmire. We don't want to fight with the Qin family until both sides suffer, and the Qin family naturally has the same thoughts. If we take the initiative and let the Qin family feel our aggressiveness, maybe they will retreat. After the Qin family finds out about this, they will definitely be furious. Jun Ling sighed. I'm afraid the pressure will be great. This matter has touched their bottom line. They definitely won't take it lying down. Qin Chang has a high heart but shallow talent, and is extremely concerned about face. He will definitely think of a way to get back at them. Jun Ling's situation is very dangerous. General Xing looked at grandfather Jiang Shifu and said, I have wronged Jun Ling in this matter. She is the most innocent person here. As a responsible man, I will stand up for Jun Ling. I will go to the Li family to propose marriage and officially marry Li Junling. Otherwise, I'm afraid she won't be able to persevere. I ask Grandpa for your approval. A divine light flashed in Jiang Shifu's eyes, and he instantly returned to his old and muddy appearance. He looked at his grandson for a long time, then said in a low voice, Since you have already decided, then do it. This is your last test. If you succeed, you will be a dragon. If you fail, you will be a worm. That is all. Yes, General Xing respectfully responded. I definitely won't disappoint Grandpa. After General Xing left, old man Jiang Shifu held a cup of tea that was gradually cooling in a daze. Pitiful woman, Jiang Shifu muttered to himself. The Qin family and the Jiang family have started a war. I knew they would definitely start a war. This is too exciting. The Jiang family's General Xing made a cuckold out of the Qin family's Qin Chang, and the Qin family immediately retaliated and eliminated Li Junling. The Qin family's methods? TSK. I heard that the Jiang family wanted to kill them to silence them, in order to put this shit on the Qin family's head, so that the Qin family won't be able to say anything. After the video was released, there was a short period of silence between the Qin family and the Jiang family, then the situation became intense. Wuxia country's famous piano master, Li Boyong, brought the female protagonist of the video, Li Junling, to the Qin family to apologize, but on the way back, the luxurious car they were riding in crashed into a ravine, killing both of them. During the crash, the car exploded, and the father and daughter were burned into charcoal. At the same time, General Xing brought generous gifts and a matchmaker to the Li family to propose marriage, hoping that the Li family and the Qin family would officially cancel the marriage and fulfill his and Li Junling's hard-to-sever relationship. He didn't wait for Li Junling to return, but he received news that Li Junling had gotten into a car accident. It was said that after receiving the news, General Xing cried bitterly, and even smashed many of the Li family's things, clenching his teeth and yelling, "They've gone too far." Who was the one going too far? The onlookers made all sorts of interpretations of this. Some people said it was obvious, this was the Qin family going too far. Although Li Junling had already apologized to the Qin family, Li Boyong had already brought his daughter to the Qin family to apologize, but on the way back, they got into a car accident. It was obvious that the Qin family wanted to show their power to the Jiang family. The woman that the Qin family couldn't get, the Jiang family shouldn't even think about getting. Some people said that General Xing was deliberately setting up a trap. General Xing knew that this time, he had angered the Qin family, and that a war was inevitable, so he might as well kill them to silence them, and then pour the dirty water on the Qin family, making them unable to extricate themselves from the quagmire, and also accept the attacks and judgment of public opinion. The war had already begun. While the outside was in an uproar, Fang Yan was sitting in Qin Etienne's villa, drinking tea. He was drinking tea that Qin Etienne had personally grown and personally picked. To be honest, the taste of the tea really wasn't that great, far from the top-grade tea that the Qin family had all year round, but young Miss Qin had kindly brought the tea in front of you, waiting for your evaluation with a face full of expectation, so how could you not give a few polite words of praise? It's really good tea, Fang Yan said with a face full of enjoyment. The last time I came here, I already felt that these tea leaves weren't ordinary, but now I know that they were personally picked by Etienne. Like I said, other than the fact that Qin Etienne can't pick the stars from the sky, there's nothing in this world that's too difficult for her. There's another thing. Qin Etienne had a mischievous smile and said, Qin Etienne also can't pick the heart of a man. Cough, cough, cough. Fang Yan coughed violently. With a red face and a thick neck, he said, "That's because that man has eyes but can't see." Not really, Qin Etienne sighed softly and said, "That's because that man chose a better woman." Seeing the regret on Qin Etienne's face, Fang Yan's mood was also a bit heavy, and he said softly, "It's not about who's better than who, it's only about suitability. How do you know that I'm not suitable?" Qin Etienne interrupted Fang Yan and asked. Seeing that Fang Yan was once again speechless by her question, Qin Etienne giggled. After laughing for a while, her face became gloomy again, and she said, "You're getting married, right?" The 8th of the 12th lunar month. Fang Yan nodded. "So annoying," Qin Etienne said. "If you're like other men, when I ask such a question, you lie and say that there's no such thing, but if you were that kind of man, I wouldn't like you so much. I think with your conditions, you can find a better man. What kind of man in this world can resist your charm?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Everyone says that, my mother also told me that, but no one cares about the main point of the matter. The main point is that the man I like is you. You see, you don't know what to say again. I understand you. If I were you, I probably wouldn't know what to say either. Qin Etienne pursed his lips and chuckled. But if I were you, I might not meet another girl like me who always says the words like and love. When I think about it this way, I feel that this world is so boring. So, I'll stick to being myself, and you should stick to being yourself. I'll continue to like you, and you should continue to be the person I like. Will you come to my wedding? Fang Yan asked carefully. In Swallow Dock, it's an old-fashioned wedding. You might think it's old-fashioned and boring. Qin Etienne glanced at Fang Yan, with a faint smile on his face, and asked, Mr. Fang, are you afraid that I'll ruin your wedding? Chapter 8:14. What's the most troublesome thing about preparing for a wedding? It's that you don't know who you should invite and who you shouldn't. If you send an invitation, you're worried that people won't come. If you don't send an invitation, you're worried that people will complain. Fang Yan wasn't afraid that Qin Etienne wouldn't come. On the contrary, he was afraid that Qin Etienne would come. He was afraid that she would come and make trouble. According to their relationship, if Fang Yan got married, he would naturally send an invitation to Qin Etienne. However, Fang Yan knew Qin Etienne's feelings for him. If he told her that he was going to marry Yi Ro, would she feel sad? Before Fang Yan could think of a way to say it, Qin Etienne took the initiative to ask. In this case, Fang Yan had no reason to hide anything. But why did Qin Etienne look at me so strangely? How come? Fang Yan knew how difficult it was to deal with Qin Etienne. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He held the teacup with both hands and looked at the pots of chrysanthemum in the yard. I'm just afraid that you're too busy or you don't like the traditional wedding. I like it very much. Qin Etienne squinted his eyes and smiled. Do you really want me to go? Of course it's true, Fang Yan said seriously. I'm very sincere. In this case, I'll go. Qin Etienne hesitated for a moment and nodded. Fang Yan also grinned and said, I'm very happy that you can go to my wedding. Really? Qin Etienne looked at Fang Yan and said, On the day of your wedding, I'll put on my most beautiful dress and my favorite phoenix coronet. I'll dress myself up beautifully to be your bridesmaid. What do you think? Fang Yan nodded. Fang Yan nodded. Imagining the scene of Qin Etienne appearing at Swallow Dock in a gorgeous gown and an expensive phoenix coronet, Fang Yan felt his head begin to swell with pain. As expected, the thing he was most worried about was about to happen. If Qin Etienne attended the wedding in Swallow Dock in this manner, in the eyes of outsiders, who would be the bride that day be, Yi Ro or her? Although Yi Ro is broad-minded, she is a woman after all. Doesn't she mind it at all? Fang Yan looked at Qin Etienne with a bitter smile and said, I know you won't do that, right? Why not? Qin Etienne asked back. This is my usual style. Why should I change it? Besides, I also want to prove to some people that I didn't lose because I was worse than others, but because I was a little slower. Etienne. Qin Etienne giggled and looked at Fang Yan's nervous face. She said, Are you afraid, Mr. Fang? I'm not afraid. I'm just worried that things will get complicated. Qin Etienne sighed softly and said, That's your wedding, the most important day in your life. How can I ruin it? Maybe I'll be very busy that day and have a lot of work to deal with. Maybe I suddenly have an upset stomach or some other problems. I won't be able to attend your wedding that day. Actually, Fang Yan looked at Qin Etienne and said, I still hope that you can attend my wedding. Yes, I also want to. Qin Etienne nodded with a smile, but her eyes were a little moist. She said, I want to see if you look handsome as the groom. I want to see if you will be nervous when you bow to heaven and earth. I want to see the bride's happy face when you hold her hand. I want to see all the guests say their sincere blessings to you. But I can't do it. Qin Etienne raised her head, and the tear that was about to fall fell back. She was Qin Etienne, the Qin Etienne who was as proud as a queen. Tears were superfluous and unnecessary burdens to her. I can accept you marrying other women, but I really don't like it. I hope you're unhappy. I hope you're not happy. Then you'll understand that I'm better. Fang Yan was silent. He really wanted to hold this girl who was arrogant even when he confessed to her. But he didn't dare and couldn't do that. She was no longer a child. She was no longer his student. She was Qin Yitian, the little princess of the Qin family, the little beauty of Yanjing, Qin Yitian. Knock, knock, knock. Coco pushed the door open in her high heels. She looked at Qin Yitian and said, "Miss, Madam is here." "I got it." Qin Yitian took out a piece of tissue to wipe the little bit of moisture from the corner of her eyes. She didn't want others to see her weak and helpless side. Even if that person was her mother. Li Xinyan was here. This was the first time Fang Yan saw Li Xinyan in Qin Yitian's villa. The mother and daughter had one thing in common. Every time they went out, it was like a visit from the head of a country. Following Li Xinyan were 5 luxury cars, a dozen bodyguards, and 2 confidential assistants. Li Xinyan was surrounded by them, like a queen who came out to inspect her territory. The bodyguards and assistants dispersed outside. Li Xinyan was welcomed into the living room by Qin Yitian and Fang Yan. He said, "What are you two talking about?" "We're talking about Fang Yan's wedding," Qin Yitian said expressionlessly. Her emotions didn't fluctuate at all. It was as if she was talking about a very insignificant matter. "Fang Yan is getting married. Did he send you an invitation?" Li Xinyan looked at her daughter's face and said to Fang Yan, "Let's talk alone." Then she took the lead and walked to the backyard of the villa. Fang Yan glanced at Qin Yitian and had to stand up and follow her. The backyard of the villa was where Fang Yan often went to the hot spring. Li Xinyan sat on a rattan chair and waited for Fang Yan's arrival. Fang Yan walked in front of Li Xinyan and said, "Teacher, Yitian cried just now," Li Xinyan said. Fang Yan was very shocked. Qin Yitian did show signs of crying just now, but he saw very clearly that the tears didn't flow down at all. Moreover, before knowing that Li Xinyan was coming, Qin Yitian used a wet tissue to wipe the corners of her eyes. She used a definite sentence, not a question, which meant that she was sure that Qin Yitian cried just now. Was this the legendary mother-daughter bond? No. Fang Yan wanted to make his description more accurate. Tian is a very proud person. Yes, because she is a very proud person, she disdains to fight for things, but if she doesn't fight for things, how can she get what she wants? Li Xinyan obviously also felt that his daughter's emotional problems were a bit tricky. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, don't blame me for bringing it up again. I'll ask you again, are you really not going to consider the proposal from last time?" Fang Yan was silent for a long time, then looked at Li Xinyan and said, "I really don't want to refuse. Because every time I refuse, I feel like I'm hurting Yitian, but you also know the situation right now. I already have a fiancé, I'm going to marry another girl, the betrothal gift has already been given, the wedding date has already been set, how can I let that girl down and choose Yitian? If that's the case, how can I be worthy of Yitian's love?" Li Xinyan sighed softly and said, "I just didn't think that my daughter would lose. Ever since she was young, she has never lost." "All right, don't feel troubled, this kind of thing can't be forced. Since Yitian has already decided to give up, I can't interfere too much." Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and said, "You already know about the recent situation, right?" "Situation? What situation?" Fang Yan asked with a confused expression. Li Xinyan's expression was gentle as he said softly, "Fang Yan, do you really not know anything? Are you talking about the matter of General Hang's stealing Qin Chang's girlfriend?" When this matter was exposed, I was also quite surprised. General Hang looks like a gentleman on the surface, but I didn't expect him to be a beast in human clothing, capable of doing all kinds of shameless things. Speaking of which, my relationship with Qin Chang is quite good. Although we had some disagreements the last time we met at Junwei House, we quickly became very good friends. I haven't had the chance to see him since coming to Beijing this time, otherwise I would have to properly comfort him. Fang Yan, Li Xinyan's gaze became sharp and said, "Do you really think that no one knows that you were the one who released that video?" Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan with a surprised expression and said, "You're actually suspecting me?" "I'm not suspecting, I'm certain. I'm certain that you did it." "You have proof?" "I don't have proof." Li Xinyan's words sounded a bit unreasonable as he said, "Feeling, this is my feeling, and also the answer that I came up with after analyzing it." Every time, you only need to pay attention to who is the biggest beneficiary behind the scenes to easily find the answer. Fang Yan. After that video was exposed, the Qin family and the Jiang family became mortal enemies. Even if the Qin family is unwilling to help, they will not accept any possibility of cooperation with the Jiang family. In addition, the Jiang family's reputation has fallen to the ground, and they have become the talk and laughingstock of the people of Beijing. Killing several birds with one stone, isn't this your plan? Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan with a serious expression and said, "Teacher, what's your attitude? What do you think of this matter? Do you think it's good or bad that this happened?" "From your point of view, it's naturally excellent. A stroke of genius," Li Xinyan praised. "From your point of view? It's also good," Li Xinyan said expressionlessly. "At least the noise in the house has disappeared, and a few people have become obedient." Fang Yan opened his mouth and smiled, then said, "If that's the case, then I'll be honest with you. This matter was done by me." Fang Yan. Li Xinyan's expression suddenly became murderous. "So it was you?" "It wasn't me," Fang Yan immediately denied. "I'm just joking. How could I think of such a brilliant idea, huh?" Chapter 8:15. It's just a game of words. If you think it's good that it happened, then I'm the one who did it. If you think it's bad, then it has nothing to do with me. You said it yourself, you don't have any evidence to prove that I have anything to do with this. Fang Yan isn't trying to hide anything, I just don't want to bring trouble to myself because of this. Of course, if he can gain some benefits or take advantage of something, he can be thick-skinned and admit it for now. Fang Yan. Li Xinyan stared coldly at Fang Yan and said, "Is this your attitude?" "This isn't my attitude, this is the attitude I'm showing to cater to your attitude," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You're worried that I'll take revenge on you?" Li Xinyan asked Fang Yan. "Do you think I'll hate or blame the culprit who released this video just to protect the Qin family's reputation? I did have that worry before. After all, after the video was released, the Qin family was pushed to the teeth of the storm, ridiculed and belittled. The Qin family's reputation was ruined, and they probably won't be able to raise their heads in public for a while. Moreover, the Qin family originally had more choices. However, after this incident, the number of choices available to them has become very limited, Fang Yan said with a smile. "That's right. But now I know Teacher Li's stance on this matter, and I also know that Teacher Li has always cared for me. The Qin family cutting off all ties with the Jiang family, and starting a fierce battle in some areas where the Jiang family has an advantage. This is a great thing for me, and also the greatest support for me. When the Qin family and the Jiang family are in a chaotic battle, the pressure on Huaqing has decreased a lot. This isn't caring for you, but the Qin family has its own dignity and reputation to protect." Li Xinyan expressionlessly looked at Fang Yan and corrected his self-perception. "I'm really angry that you suddenly released that video. The elders of the Qin family are also angry, but as I said, from your perspective, you have 100 reasons to do so." "Yes," Fang Yan nodded. "I have other methods as well. For example, after getting the video, I would find a suitable opportunity to send it to Qin Chang. As long as Qin Chang knew about this, the wedding between the Qin family and Li Junling would be ruined. The Qin family and the Jiang family would become mortal enemies. However, I was worried that Qin Chang's influence was still too small. I was worried that someone in the Qin family would want to suppress this matter. If that's the case, Li Junling won't be able to display her greatest value." "So you pushed it to the public?" "I can only do this." Fang Yan looked at Li Xinyan sincerely. "You also know that my current situation isn't too good. The Jiang family is closing in on us step by step, and we don't have much power to fight back. Li Junling is a chess piece that I have my eyes on since a long time ago. Regardless of whether she is related to the Qin family or not, things will come to this, unless she doesn't leave any evidence behind. Everyone lives a difficult life," Li Xinyan said with a sigh. "Everyone's life is not easy. I was forced to this point by the Jiang family, so if I can find a chance to fight back or win, I will always want to try. At that time, morality and conscience will temporarily retreat, and I will first ensure that I and my friends can live well. Li Xinyan nodded, then looked at Fang Yan and asked, Li Junling was killed. On the way out of the Qin family, she got into a car accident. I know, Fang Yan said. What do you think of this? I expected General Xing to play this hand, Fang Yan said coldly. He hated people who disregarded life. Those people had no compassion or virtue. They weren't worthy of being human. He saw that he was about to lose his hand, but he couldn't save the situation, so he simply flipped the table. This way, no one would be able to see the end. General Xing and Li Junling were having an affair. He couldn't clean up this matter. Whether it was giving up on Li Junling or accepting her, it was an incredibly difficult matter for him. If he gave up on Li Junling, his reputation would fall to the ground. He would be criticized and attacked by countless people, and it would be difficult for him to gain the trust of others in the future. Even the family would lose their expectations of him. Accepting Li Junling was the same as stabbing a thorn in the Qin family's eye. Every time the Qin family saw Li Junling and General Xing together, they would feel angry. General Xing isn't an idiot. Regardless of whether he can take over the Jiang family in the future, he can't create such a strong opponent for himself. He can't keep a target by his side at all times. When the Qin family's hostility reaches a peak, no one can predict what they will do. General Xing doesn't dare risk his life. Besides, Li Junling was previously the fiancé of the Qin family. If General Xing wants to marry Li Junling, he probably won't be able to get past the Jiang family, right? Jiang Shifu is an old man who cares about his face. Would he let his grandson, the man who might be the future leader of the Jiang family, marry a woman who had an affair before? Even though the object of that woman's affair was his own grandson, this is still something that he can't tolerate and accept. Li Xinyan laughed lightly and said, Perhaps General Xing really wants to marry Li Junling? He brought people to the Li family to propose, but when he received the bad news that Li Junling had gotten into a car accident, he cried endlessly. It said that he even smashed 2 mahogany chairs and a Ming dynasty vase. Fang Yan laughed coldly and said, The reason why General Xing dared to go to the Li family to propose was because he knew that he didn't need to be responsible for anyone. If he knew that Li Junling would get into a car accident, then why wouldn't he bring people to the Li family and pretend to be an infatuated man? The connoisseur understands the artistry, while the layman enjoys the show. Even though we understand the mystery behind this, the majority of people in this world are made up of ordinary people. After something like this happened, General Xing's reputation should be pretty good right now, right? Very good, Li Xinyan said. Some people compare them to the butterfly lovers, saying that the Qin family ruined the marriage of a pair of people who truly loved each other. He became the representative of love and righteousness. Look, our opponent is such a smart guy, Fang Yan said with a smile. He caused such a big trouble by fooling around with a woman, but in the end he didn't have to clean up after anyone, and he even won reputation and sympathy. I like smart young people. Li Xinyan looked at Fang Yan and said, But I don't like smart people who do things without principles or limits. So you have a reason to like me. Fang Yan said seriously, I'm smart, and I do things with principles and limits. I believe in Etienne's eyesight. Li Xinyan didn't deny it this time. She can't like a scumbag. At this time of the year, people in Beijing already needed to wear windbreakers or thicker cotton-padded jackets to keep out the cold, but Huaqing was still in the midst of autumn. The leaves had only just turned yellow, unlike the north, which was full of fallen leaves. The winter water wasn't cold, the winter wind wasn't cold, and the winter soil wasn't frozen. Huaqing was named after flowers, and bright flowers bloomed all year round. Even during the coldest time of the year, a thick sweater was enough to last them through the winter. On a desolate beach, among the withered reeds, a lone bird flew across the water, then disappeared into the reeds without a trace. Then, as if it was threatened, it flapped its wings and flew away. Deep within the reeds, the silhouettes of people could be faintly seen. They were lying there motionlessly, like hunters waiting to catch their prey. It's in front, a man's voice said. I see it, another man's voice said. How do we move? Together. Of course I know we should move together. I just want to ask who's in front and who's behind. One in front, one behind, the honest voice sounded a bit impatient. You go from the front, I'll attack from behind. Why don't you go from the front, I'll attack from behind? Fine, I'll go from the front, you attack from behind. Huh, why didn't you argue with me this time? While the fat figure was still talking, the thin man who always liked to argue with him had already charged forward like a bony snake. His figure was tall and thin, but his movements were very agile. He disappeared into the reeds in an instant. This guy, the fat figure sighed, then turned into an agile, wild boar, and also charged towards the row of makeshift houses by the sea. Regardless of whether it was a large building or a marine project, they would first hire workers to build makeshift houses near the project as a temporary command post and resting place for the workers. This place was originally meant to be a port, but for some unknown reason, the port project was stopped and the makeshift houses lost their purpose. Perhaps due to other considerations, the makeshift houses were never demolished, enduring the wind and waves, but also taking in seabirds and crabs. The two of them moved quickly, and after a few difficult stealth movements, they had already moved to the side of the makeshift house. They hid behind a small clump of reeds, and after their eyes met, their bodies rushed forward like arrows or pigs released from bowstrings. When they were about to reach the door of the makeshift house, they ran back at a speed 10 times faster than when they left. Whoosh! Countless assassins in black appeared around them. Chapter 8:16. The men in black were like a group of well-trained ghosts. They quietly crawled out from the roof of the prefab house and the reeds. They formed a fan-shaped encirclement. Other than the path they came from, the other 3 paths were all blocked by them. They gave you 2 choices, run or die. Of course, this was under the condition that you could escape. If you couldn't, you would die. According to Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's style, they would fight if they could win, and run if they couldn't. When Fang Yingxiong was about to run back into the reeds with his butt in the air, he noticed something unusual around him. Fang Haohen did not follow. Instead, he stopped at the edge of the reeds. Then, step by step, he walked in the direction of the makeshift house, toward the men in black. Fang Yingying panicked. He turned around and shouted at Fang Haohen, "Fang Haohen, are you crazy?" Fang Haohen didn't respond and continued to walk toward the men in black. Fang Yingying turned around and dragged Fang Haohen's body. He shouted, "Hero, go, go, we are surrounded. Have you forgotten what junior martial uncle taught us? Safety first. You go, I won't go." Fang Haohen shook off Fang Yingying's pole and said in a hoarse voice, "They came out, which means we have found the right place. Our hard work has been worth it." "Of course I know we have found the right place, but don't you see how many people there are? 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Let's retreat first and go back to get reinforcements." "I can't go," Fang Haohen said firmly. "If we leave, they will leave too. Didn't we spend so much effort to find them just for this moment?" As Fang Haohen spoke, he was already standing not far from the group of men in black. Fang Yingying gritted his teeth, straightened his back, and stood beside Fang Haohen. "If you're not here, I won't leave either. Today, us 2 brothers will fight to the death with them. This bunch of trash might not be able to keep us here," Fang Haohen said confidently. "Let's go back and forth, then save Li Ya. All right, for sister-in-law, big brother will fight it out with you. The wind is bleak and the water is cold. Heroes and warriors stand shoulder to shoulder." Fang Haohen stared fiercely at the men in black and said, "I'll go first." "I'll go with you." The 2 of them rubbed their palms together and prepared to attack. Voila! The group of black-clothed men shook their wrists, and each of them held a pitch-black pistol in their hands. The pitch-black muzzle was aimed at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's entire body. As long as someone gave the order, the 2 of them would be turned into sieves by these bullets. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, who were about to charge forward, stopped. The 2 of them looked at each other and raised their hands high up at the same time. "We surrender," Fang Yingying said. "If you have the ability, then fight with me for real." "What kind of hero is holding a gun?" Fang Haohen shouted. The black-clothed men parted to the sides, and a young man wearing white casual pants and a striped vest walked out. In such a desolate suburb, it was really surprising to see such a man dressed like a noble. Jiang Junling held an apple in his hand, and with a bite, the juice flowed out, and when he chewed, it made a kacha-kacha sound. Jiang Junling ate the apple while looking at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, and said with a smile, "Fang Yan sent you? I wanted to come myself." Fang Haohen said firmly. He knew who Jiang Junling was, and he also knew what kind of deep hatred Jiang Junling had with his junior martial uncle. "Was Leah kidnapped by you guys?" "Here." Jiang Junling pointed to the makeshift house behind him and said, "If Leah is Du Qing's beautiful goddaughter, then she is indeed in our hands. However, it seems like it will be very difficult for you to take her away, right?" "We never thought of taking her away." Fang Yingying said righteously, "We just want to be with her." Fang Haohen looked at Fang Yingying in dissatisfaction, feeling that he had stolen his lines, and said, "Yes, we just want to be with her." Jiang Junling chuckled as he looked at the two of them, and said, "As expected of someone from the Fang family, you guys are exactly the same as Fang Yan." Hearing Jiang Junling praise them for being exactly the same as junior martial uncle Fang Yan, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen both revealed smiles on their faces. But thinking about their current situation, the smile on their faces instantly disappeared. "We want to meet Leah," Fang Haohen said. Fang Yingying pointed at Fang Haohen and said, "The main thing is that he wants to see Leah. It doesn't matter if I see him or not. But it would be best if the three of us could be arranged together." "Alright, since you guys have already made such a request." Jiang Junling threw away the apple core in his hand, took a towel from a black-clothed man and wiped his hands, then said with a smile, "For my old friend Fang Yan's sake, I will not satisfy any of you. Look, don't I have Fang Yan style when I speak like this?" Fang Yingying nodded, and said to Fang Haohen, "It really does look like it." Jiang Junling felt a little bored, and said, "Capture them all." Thus, a few black-clothed men put away the guns in their hands and rushed over. In a group of two, they carried handcuffs that looked translucent and had liquid rippling inside, wanting to handcuff Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen. "No need to go through so much trouble." A hearty man's voice was heard. "If you cuff them now, you will have to untie them in a while. Why bother?" The reeds parted, and a man with long hair walked out with his head held high. "Bai Li Lu." Fang Yingying was overjoyed. He waved at Bai Li Lu and shouted, "We are here. I see you." Bai Li Lu glanced at Fang Yingying and said, "You're so big, it's not easy to not see you." Bai Li Lu walked straight to Jiang Junling and said with a smile, "Young Master Jiang, it's not the first time we've dealt with each other. I know your personality, and you also understand my temper. I'll take them away, and we'll discuss other things slowly. How about it?" "Give me a reason." Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu and said with a smile, "Why?" "Because I'm standing in front of you. I'm afraid this reason won't convince me." Jiang Junling shook his head and refused. "Even if you were standing in front of me, you wouldn't be able to take them away." When he said this, 1/3 of the black-clothed men turned their guns and aimed at Bai Li Lu. Some of them took out silver-white disc-shaped objects, which could blast Bai Li Lu, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohen into thin air. Genetic bomb. Bai Li Lu pursed his lips and said with some annoyance, "These things again." Fang Yingying was shocked, thinking that Bai Li Lu did not know the danger of these things, and quickly reminded him, "Big brother Bai Li, when those things explode, it's very terrifying. Even rocks can melt into ashes." "I know," Bai Li Lu said with some impatience. "A long time ago, your junior martial uncle reminded me that when I encounter these things, I should either kill the person directly or run far away to avoid being killed by them. I want to run far away, but I still have to save you two idiots. What do you think I should do?" Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen thought about it seriously, and also began to worry about Bai Li Lu's situation. Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu with a smile and said, "It's the people from Swallow Dock again. I really hate the people from Swallow Dock more and more now. Last time we parted at Lotus Temple, I thought there would be a chance to see you again. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Bai Li Lu, do you think I don't dare to kill you?" "Of course you dare to kill me." Bai Li Lu said carelessly, "You are a scum who has no father or son and was expelled by your own family. What kind of things can't you do? Is there anything you don't dare to do in this world? Is there someone you don't dare to kill? It's good that you understand. We all know each other well, so there's no need to waste your breath." Jiang Junling's eyes were full of murderous intent. He was ready to kill. As long as he gave the order, the group of men in black behind him would be able to use Bai Li Lu, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohen as targets. There was also a group of masters scattered on both sides. They were the high priests that Jiang Junling had won over before. Later, because of his downfall, a group of them left, including the blind fisherman and the Xing Yi master Bao Shi. The blind fisherman left because of the estrangement between him and Bao Shi, and it was purely because he couldn't get what he wanted from him. However, there was still a group of masters whose lives were in his hands, and who had to work for him stayed by his side. Even if Bai Li Lu and the others were not killed by the random gunshots, occasionally a fish that slipped through the net would be attacked by the group and chopped into meat paste. After Jiang Junling left the Jiang family, he became a lonely ghost wandering in the wilderness. He looked miserable and pitiful, but it also freed him from the shackles brought by his identity. He could use all kinds of means to achieve his own goals and scrupulously. For example, now, he unabashedly took those murderous maniacs, members of the arsenal who had the most sophisticated weapons with him as bodyguards. If it had been in the past, it would have been a big taboo. Don't be impulsive. Bai Li Lu waved his hand and said with a smile, "I know what you want to do, but I advise you not to be impulsive." Oh? Jiang Junling looked at Bai Li Lu and smiled gently and comfortably. He said, "Although I really don't have any entertainment on this seaside, when I'm tired of playing a game, I naturally want to give up and change to another game. If you don't have any more fun games, then I can only say goodbye forever." "There really is," Bai Li Lu said with a serious face. "I know you like playing games. Today, I'll play with you to the fullest." He clapped his hands, and there was a slight whistling sound. That sound was very strange, like a buzzing sound in the air. It was not very clear, but everyone present could hear it. When this sound rang out, a scene that made people's scalps tingle appeared. Countless venomous snakes rushed out from the reeds. They entangled with each other and hissed. They were so densely packed that they blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they swept towards them. Chapter 8:17. This was a snake disaster. It was the first time many of them had seen so many snakes and so many different kinds of poisonous snakes gathered together. Their bodies were entangled together, swaying and twisting left and right. Their heads were raised high, and their triangular eyes flashed with a murderous glint. They opened their mouths and spat out their long or short venomous tongues. When they slid, their abdomens rubbed against the grass, making a hissing sound. Countless venomous snakes swarmed in from all directions, treating everyone in the encirclement as their sumptuous meal. A man wearing a gray cloak appeared. His head was covered with a wide black hat. His face could not be seen clearly, but his gloomy and sinister aura could be felt. He was holding a flute-like instrument in his hands, and the buzzing sound came from that instrument. Whoosh! Someone among the black-clothed men took out a silver disc and threw out a few of these weapons. No matter how many poisonous snakes there were, they would be corroded into air. "Look, I have helpers too." Bai Li Lu looked at Jiang Junling and said, "And I have the advantage in numbers." Jiang Junling smiled and looked at Bai Li Lu. He pointed at the poisonous snakes and said, "Do you think that these few poisonous snakes can threaten me? If I just throw a few cockroach number 5, I'm afraid more than half of these poisonous snakes will die, right? Even if there are a few that escaped, I'm afraid they won't have the guts to act violently." Jiang Junling shook his head and said, "If it's just this kind of game, then it's really regrettable. It's too easy to clear the game. Instead, it makes people lose interest in playing. What if I tell you that many of the poisonous snakes in the snake formation have miniature bombs installed on them?" Bai Li Lu laughed and said, "Although the power of those miniature bombs is not as powerful as your cockroach number 5, if they explode together with the cockroach number 5, the scene will be spectacular, right?" Bai Li Lu pointed at Jiang Junling and said, You, everyone around you, and me. I'm afraid that no one here will survive. Jiang Junling still had a mocking smile on his face and said, "Do you think I will believe that?" "If I were you, I wouldn't believe it either," Bailey Lu said. "But I don't want to prove anything to you. What should I do?" "Aren't you afraid of death?" "It's not that I'm bragging, but our Bailey family doesn't have long lives. The more talented they are, the shorter their lifespans. This is because there's no way to cross the threshold of the heavenly Dao realm. Most of them go mad before they die. My talent is the highest in the Bailey family over the centuries. I believe that if I don't step into the heavenly Dao realm, I'll die soon. Before I die, I'll do something good for my friend and perish together with the opponent he hates the most. I believe he'll be grateful to me for life, right?" Jiang Junling's face turned gloomy as he said, "This kind of negotiation method is really original. I really don't know how to refute you. But if I let him go just because of your threat, won't it be a joke if it gets out? This is the problem you need to consider. Others can't help you." Bai Lilu crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he was not anxious at all. "But you look like you're in a dilemma. Let me tell you that there is a bomb in the snake formation. Although you are suspicious, you will not dare to play with your life. Although you don't want to admit it, in your heart, you must think that you're superior to us. If the person standing in front of you was Fang Yan, and you were asked to perish together with him, you might think that this matter can be considered. But the person standing in front of you is me, Fang Yan's two good-for-nothing martial nephews." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked at each other, thinking, "How are we good for nothing? We're already very promising, all right?" You feel that it's unfair in your heart, right? You feel that dying in such a way is too unfair for you. But you also know that the longer this matter drags on, the more advantageous it is for us. If you can't get rid of us in the shortest time possible, then more people will come to help. You're no longer young Master Jiang, but a wandering ghost that was chased out of the Jiang family. But don't forget, this is Flower City. There are countless of Du Qing's brothers and good friends here. You kidnapped Du Qing's goddaughter, wouldn't he fight you to the death? Looks like I can only surrender and accept your conditions, Jiang Junling said with a smile. We can also fight to the death and perish together. Jiang Junling looked at the Snake Lord, who was playing the instrument to control the snakes, and said sarcastically, "Your master died in the hands of Fang Yan. I didn't expect that you would eventually become a lackey under Fang Yan. If the previous Snake Lord knew that his disciple was so spineless, he would have regretted passing the position of Snake Lord to you." The Snake Lord stopped playing, and the venomous snakes began to gather around him. These pointy monsters and the group of black-clothed men with sharp weapons in their hands formed a standoff. The Snake Lord looked at Jiang Junling and said, "My current name is Fang Shida. I am a member of the Fang clan." Fang Shida, a good name. The sarcasm on the Snake Lord's face became even stronger. "You're wrong." The Snake Lord looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Even if my master was still alive and knew that I was working for Fang Yan, he wouldn't be disappointed in me. You don't understand snakes, and you don't understand the lineage of the Snake Lord. Although we are the Snake Lords in the eyes of humans, aren't we still beasts that can't be shown in public? You, and the people around you, when did they ever see us as humans? Including my master, when he was working for you, didn't you also see him as a killing weapon, a beast that you ordered around? I'm different. I can sense Fang Yan's kindness, and I know that he is sincerely thinking for my sake. He returned me the snake eye long ago, and as long as I am willing, I can leave or rebel at any time, but it is also because of this that I know that he sees me as a friend, as a brother. I have freedom, I have dignity, and I can also feel warmth from humans. I already have much more than my master, so how could he regret passing the position of Snake Lord to me just because I'm living so well? Didn't we pass down the torch so that one day, the Snake Lord lineage can be upright and honorable people? The Snake Lord still spoke with a thick Xianxia accent, and because he didn't usually speak much, his ability to express himself was a bit shaky. However, because every word he said came from the bottom of his heart, it made others feel that he was very sincere and that every word he said was from the bottom of his heart. He was very satisfied with his current state, and he was very grateful for everything he had right now. Clap, Clap, clap. Jiang Junling applauded again and again, then looked at the Snake Lord and said, "Then I really have to congratulate you." "Let him go," the Snake Lord said coldly. He stared at Bai Xiu with his snake-like triangular eyes and said, "Or be torn to shreds by them. After hearing what you said just now, I feel that you and Fang Yan are really a pair of brothers who have gone through life and death with each other. I'm so envious." Jiang Junling chuckled and said, "But as a brother, you're living a comfortable life. Haven't you thought about your poor little sister?" Jiang Junling clapped his hands and said, "Bring her out." As soon as he said that, the metal door of the makeshift house was pushed open again. Two men in black helped a woman out, one on the left and one on the right. The woman's right leg was already lame, so it was extremely inconvenient for her to walk, and her lame leg was almost dragging on the ground. His head was lowered, and his long hair covered his entire face, making it difficult for others to see his appearance. Thump! The two men in black threw her to the ground, and the woman lost her balance and fell to the ground. She seemed to still be conscious, and her body was still wriggling. She tried to get up, but because her hands were cuffed by the genetic hand, and her leg was seriously injured, she failed several times. The Snake Lord's hands were clenched into fists, and the veins on his hands were bulging. He clenched his teeth, and the muscles on his face kept twitching. Even though he hadn't seen the woman's face, he already knew who she was. How could he not know who she was? That was her, his entire life. He had always thought that they would live together forever, 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives, or even 10 lives without being separated. But she fell in love with a man who shouldn't have loved her, and he himself was heartbroken by him. He thought that the two of them would never meet again after the last time they parted. He thought that he had a new life, and she should also have her own. Occasionally, he would think about where she went. Was she doing well now? But he never thought that she would live like this, that she would live such a miserable life. Jiang Junling looked at the Snake Lord and said, "You should find her familiar, right? Maybe she's a little different from the woman you knew before, but I promise you, she is the person in your heart." Jiang Junling took out a silver box from his pocket, shook it in front of the Snake Lord, and said, "If you aren't nearsighted, you should be familiar with this thing, right?" He walked in front of the woman and grabbed her hair. He pulled her head up and said to the Snake Lord, "I can prove to you that I have never played a joke on you." The woman's face was covered in bruises, indicating that she had suffered a lot before. The most terrifying thing was that her left eye socket was empty, like a tree pit that should have carried a big tree. Now that the tree had been uprooted, only the big pit was left to prove that the tree had once existed. "Sister," the Snake Lord screamed. Chapter 8:18. Before Bailey Lu came to Huaqing, Fang Yan gave him 3 words. "Be careful. Be careful. Be careful." Fang Yan stirred up the situation in Yanjing and manipulated the overall situation. But he still had to save his friends. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's search finally found some clues. Fang Yan was too busy to attend to other matters, so he let Bailey Lu come over to help with the matters here. Fang Yan once talked to Bailey Lu about Jiang Junling. His evaluation of Jiang Junling was, Jiang Junling is above average and he has no bottom line. Bailey Lu thought for a few seconds and finally understood the subtext of Fang Yan's words. Jiang Junling is a smart bastard. Bailey Lu was not afraid of bastards. No matter how stupid they are, they can't beat his miraculous fist. But he was afraid of smart people. Smart people are much more terrible than bastards. When he saw Jiang Junling applaud, he knew that he was ready to use his ultimate move. Isn't it always like this in TV and movies? Sure enough, when the general revealed his trump card, he immediately got rid of one of his generals. Fang Wang was a general who truly held real power. The thousands of troops and thousands of poisonous snakes under his command were the key to their victory on this trip. If Snake Lord surrendered, they would be in a disadvantageous situation again. "Sister!" Snake Lord screamed in a sad voice. Even though he had already decided to sever all ties with them, when he saw his sister being tortured and even having one of her eyes dug out by them, he felt as if hundreds of bugs were gnawing at his heart. He still felt so uncomfortable that he hovered between life and death. Hearing Snake Lord's voice, The woman in black finally raised her head and looked over. One of her eyes was empty, and the other was covered by messy hair. It was muddy, brown, and bloodshot. She looked like a horrible monster. "Brother," she called hoarsely. Her voice was dry, as if she hadn't spoken for a long time. Before she could even say the word, brother, her remaining eye socket was already filled with tears, and large drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. "Are you okay?" Seeing his sister's expression, Snake Lord felt even more uncomfortable. She called him brother again. She admitted their relationship again. In that dark and despairing childhood, they were the only light in each other's eyes. In the bone-chilling winter in the mountains, the two of them snuggled up to each other for warmth. They faced death together, as well as the challenges of various poisonous snakes. One became the Snake Lord, and the other became the Snake Lord's sister. They were two humanoid monsters, two venomous snakes that could speak the human language. However, how could they fall in love with humans? In the eyes of humans, they were just monsters and venomous snakes. "Brother!" The woman in black called out again. Her voice sounded even more miserable as she sobbed. Snake Lord stared at Jiang Junling fiercely and said, "Let her go. It seems like you two know each other." Jiang Junling played with the small silver box in his hand and said with a smile, "This is the only way to make this game fun." Jiang Junling raised the small box in his hand to the Snake Lord and asked, "You should know what this is, right?" Snake Lord knew, but he was unwilling to answer. Because the answer to this question was too cruel for them. "This is your sister's eye, which is also what you call the snake's eye." Jiang Junling put the silver box under the sun and raised his head to look at it carefully. He said, "It is said that if you control the snake's eye, you can control the fate of a snake slave." "Oh, you call yourself the Snake Lord. That's not important. You can call yourself anything." "I've never believed this saying. I think it's mostly made up. Why don't we do an experiment with this eye today?" "Don't hurt her," Snake Lord shouted anxiously. Jiang Junling looked at Snake Lord seriously and said, "It seems that the rumors are true. But why don't I hurt her? You can hurt me, so why can't I hurt her? You're not my friend, right? If you're willing to be my friend, then I'll take the initiative to give you this eye." "Don't be fooled by him." Bailey Lu hurriedly stopped him. He didn't know much about Snake Lord, so he didn't know what kind of person he was. Although Fang Yen had told him to believe his words, if he was instigated by Jiang Junling, these poisonous snakes would turn around and become sharp weapons against them. At that time, it would be too late to cry. "Fang Yen, don't listen to his lies. How did they use your sister in the past? What was the result? How did they treat your sister after she was no longer of any use? If you stand on his side today, you'll soon end up like your sister. At that time, not only will you not be able to save your sister, but you'll also lose your life." "I understand." Snake Lord glanced at Bailey Lu and said in a hoarse voice, "I understand. I know what kind of people they are, and I know what they want to do. In their eyes, we're just playthings that they can manipulate. That's how my master died. My master's master died the same way. They know the skills of us snake keepers, so they secretly sent people to Xianxia to look for us. They never treated us as human beings. Except for Fang Yen, no one treats us as human beings." Bailey Lu was speechless. For a long time, he actually had a strong rejection of Snake Lord in his heart. He always felt that this person was very dirty and very poisonous, different from the warriors who practiced martial arts in the open and aboveboard. They walked the unorthodox path. According to martial arts novels, they belonged to the evil path, and they were the targets of the righteous people who wanted to be eradicated. She hadn't expected Fang Shi to be fully aware of all this, but he had never shown any signs of abnormality. Perhaps in his heart, it was enough to have Fang Yan's approval. "But she's my sister. I can't not save her," Snake Lord said firmly. "What a deep sibling love. This kind of brother is touching." Jiang Junling said with a smile, "You're an expert in raising snakes. You know how to save your sister. As long as you do it, I'll return the snake's eye to you. And I'll let you leave with your sister, and we'll never see each other again." "Fang Yen, Think about it carefully. Bailey Lu's expression was serious, and his eyes emitted a frightening light. If they were bitten by this venomous snake today, their entire army might be annihilated. Fang Yan, how can you do this? Have you forgotten what Junior Marshal Uncle did to you? Fang Yingying shouted. You traitor! A snake is a snake. It can never be as loyal and unyielding as a human. Fang Haohan hated this kind of despicable behavior to the bone. How could he betray someone just because he wanted to? Snake Lord's eyes were filled with pain, and the yellow muscles on his face kept twitching. His body slowly lay down, and his eyes looked at his sister who was sitting on the ground. He made hissing sounds. Snake Lord's younger sister was also lying on the ground, hissing in the same manner. Their movements were like snakes, and their voices were like snakes. At first glance, it seemed like two human-shaped snakes were talking in snake language. Snake Lord's eyes were filled with tears. Snake Lord's sister nodded at her brother, and her surviving eye was also crying. Hiss. Snake Lord made a very sharp sound. Hiss. Snake Lord's sister responded with the same sharp sound. Snake Lord looked at his sister with gentle and loving eyes, and a buzzing sound came from his mouth. A fiery red scorpion crawled out of Snake Lord's body. The scorpion shook its head, as if it had just woken up. Snake Lord's sister smiled happily, as if the fiery red scorpion was a good friend she hadn't seen for many years. She stretched out her hand to the scorpion. The scorpion looked at Snake Lord, and quickly crawled towards Snake Lord's sister. Then, it jumped and stood on the palm of Snake Lord's sister. Snake Lord's sister said something to the scorpion. The scorpion made a hissing sound, and its body retreated as if it knew something terrible. Snake Lord's sister held the scorpion tightly, and then stuffed its head and body into her mouth. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The scorpion's tail swung desperately, and it used its poisonous stinger to slap Snake Lord's sister's face and other parts of her body. Snake Lord's sister looked at Snake Lord, and her face was filled with joy and reluctance to part forever. Kacha! A crisp sound was heard. Fire Scorpion's tail slapped even more fiercely, and then it raised high, maintaining that posture, and could no longer be put down. Snake Lord's sister's face showed a painful expression, and dark red scorpion blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Kacha! She chewed hard, and then rolled the whole scorpion into her mouth and swallowed it. Gulp. Her throat squirmed, and then her body swelled up like an inflated balloon. Pa-pa-pa. Her body made a sound like popping beans, and the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. Blood flowed out of her 7 orifices, and the blood that flowed out was steaming and bubbling. Brother! Snake Lord's sister's body softly collapsed to the ground, and her weak eyes were still tightly grasping her brother. She hated this world, but she liked her brother. She thought that she had lost him forever, but she didn't expect to see him again before she died. This was really the happiest thing in her life. I saw Master. Chapter 8:19. Even when the body became stiff and motionless, the swollen area still did not subside. Thick hot blood flowed out of the eyes, mouth, nose, ears, and other parts of the body. It was clear that the fire scorpion's toxicity was so great that it could boil a person's blood. Everyone stared blankly at this scene. No one had thought that things would develop in this direction. Didn't he say that he would be a shameless traitor? Didn't he say that he would save his sister? Why did things end up like this? The elder brother used a fire scorpion to poison his sister to death? Bailey Lu's expression was extremely ugly. Only now did he realize that he had misunderstood Fang Yu. The reason why he said that he would save his sister wasn't to save her life, but to save her dignity, to save her freedom, and to save her freedom. Because he could see that his sister was living a life worse than death. When the snake monarch had communicated with his sister in snake language just now, he had already forgiven her for her previous actions. They had confessed with deep affection, but were reluctant to part. They raised snakes, served snakes, and understood snakes. They manipulated the snakes, and the snakes manipulated them. It was in their nature to walk freely, unwilling to be bound by any kind of restraint. They were ruthless, vicious, and vengeful, but they also had their own feelings, as well as the ideals that they pursued all their lives. They needed dignity. Since the beginning of history, the snake monarchs of every generation had been reduced to killing tools for powerful people. They used their snake controlling skills to achieve their own various goals. Even the current snake monarch's master had encountered the same fate. However, when had they ever considered the feelings of the snake monarchs? Bailey Lu once again thought of Feng Yan's words. Feng Yan had told him that he could trust Feng Yu without reservation. He thought that if Feng Yan was here, he would definitely be able to handle it well. His perspective was still far inferior to Feng Yan's. Feng Yingying and Feng Haohan looked at each other. Just now, they had been insulting and attacking the snake monarch, worried about what would happen to them if the snake monarch betrayed them. In the blink of an eye, he had played such a jaw-dropping show. They were not stupid. They could see the snake lord's feelings for that woman. They knew that he loved her deeply. However, in the end, he did such a thing. He chose them, chose Feng Yan, chose justice and loyalty. Feng Yingying and Feng Haohan were about to cry. They felt sorry for Snake King. They also sympathized with the Snake Lord because they knew that the Snake Lord's only family member was dead. Of course, they were now very willing to be the Snake Lord's family member. Jiang Junling's face turned livid. He stared at Snake Lord with sharp eyes and said in a cold voice, "Are you kidding me? Do you know that? You missed your last chance to save your sister and yourself? I'm not messing with you." The Snake Lord was still kneeling on the ground, staring at his sister without blinking. His sallow face was filled with grief. "I know what kind of person you are. I've heard too much about people like you before I've even met you. In this world, there's nothing you can't do. If I stand on your side today, my friends will be killed by you. You won't let me go, and you won't let me leave with my sister. Maybe my sister can live for the time being, but she won't live for long. Because when you find that I'm of no use to you, you'll throw me away with her, just like you did to my sister before. My sister will die, and I will die too. It's just a matter of time. It's just that the time of our death will be after we've been manipulated by you to do more evil things." Jiang Junling's eyes were as cold as ice. He stared at Snake Lord's body as if he wanted to pierce countless holes in it. "So, you didn't hesitate to kill your sister with your own hands?" "No, I didn't want to kill her. She wanted to die." Snake Lord finally raised his head, looked at Jiang Junling and said, "She was full of hope for life and yearned for the outside world. The last time we met, she fought with me for a man. She said that she wanted to stay outside. She didn't want to go back to the gloomy and uninhabited mountain village. But she regretted it. Just now, she told me that she regretted coming out. She hoped that she could stay in the deep forest for the rest of her life. She didn't have to face anyone, nor did she have to hide from anyone. She didn't have to always feel that she was inferior to others. She didn't have to accept people looking at her as if she were an animal. She was more willing to be with those poisonous snakes and beasts, because she said that they were 100 times, 1,000 times kinder than humans." Snake Lord got up from the ground and patted the dust off his gray robe. He looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Now, let's put an end to it." "Put an end to it?" Jiang Junling sneered. "What right do you have to put an end to it? What right do you have to say that to me? Who do you think you are? You are nothing but an ugly, stinking bug. Snake Lord? That's the biggest joke in the world. Do you think that you sacrificed yourself for Feng Yan? Do you think that if you choose to stand on their side, they will be grateful to you and see you as one of them? Dream on." Jiang Junling pointed to the Snake Lord's sister on the ground and said, "You just poisoned your own sister for them. You made a huge sacrifice for them, but do you think they will avenge you? If, when you want to take revenge, they are not willing to stand on your side, and instead stop you and make you give up on the act of revenge, what will you do?" Jiang Junling had a strange smile on his face, like a demon luring the kind people to make mistakes. "Invite our Miss Li out." Jiang Junling looked into the Snake Lord's eyes and said. Very quickly, the metal door of the makeshift house was pushed open again, and Liu, who was also handcuffed, was pushed out. Perhaps it was because Liu was still useful, but her condition seemed to be much better. Although her hair was messy, her clothes were untidy, her face was pale, and her face was haggard, but at least her limbs were still healthy and safe. Li Ya's eyes were lifeless, and only when she saw Fang Yinging and Fang Haohan did she shine with a strange light, and shouted excitedly, "Fang Haohan!" Then he saw that Fang Haohan was also being held hostage, and became a hostage like him. "Xiaoya!" Fang Haohan grinned. As long as he saw Li Ya, he would be extremely happy. Of course, this was a common problem for men. Seeing a beauty made them extremely happy. "Why are you here?" Li Ya asked. "I'm here to save you," Fang Haohan said. "Me too," Fang Yingying added. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, "I almost succeeded in the rescue." Li Ya was already too lazy to talk to these two fellows. She had never even seen them before. How could she have the nerve to say that the rescue was almost successful? Looking at the current situation, did this look like a successful rescue? Also, what was going on with that pile of snakes? After experiencing this kidnapping incident, Li Ya was already used to many things. Even if she had to sit at the same table as a dinosaur tomorrow morning, she wouldn't be surprised. Jiang Junling looked at the Snake Lord and said with a smile, "Your sister is dead, and died in front of you. Do you really want to avenge her now?" Jiang Junling threw the silver box in his hand onto the ground and stomped on it. Bang! Countless cracks appeared on the silver box, and dark brown blood flowed out. Jiang Junling looked straight into the Snake Lord's murderous eyes and said, "Come on, kill me. You deserve to die." The Snake Lord gritted his teeth and shouted. His clenched fists made cracking sounds, and he looked at the general's token with eyes that were about to bleed. The Snake Lord once again put the strange instrument to his mouth and blew it, making a whooshing sound. This time, the tone was much more intense than before, and the poisonous snakes that were controlled by the music became even more restless. They hissed and slithered towards Jiang Junling's direction. Jiang Junling grabbed Li Ya's hair and used her body to block in front of him. Jiang Junling looked at the Snake Lord coldly and said, "Come, as long as you dare to let those poisonous snakes near, I will blow them into pieces." Fang Haohan said anxiously, I'm willing, big brother, please don't hurt Xiaoya." Fang Yingying was also very anxious and said, "I'm willing. Li Ya is Du Qing's goddaughter. Du Qing is Junior Martial Uncle's good friend. Junior Martial Uncle hopes that we can save her. You must not act recklessly." Bailey Lu's mouth opened, but he couldn't say anything. He had already misunderstood the Snake Lord once, and in the end, the Snake Lord had poisoned his own sister to death in order to protect them. Now that the Snake Lord wanted to avenge his sister, could he stop him? However, if he didn't stop him, would he really let the Snake Lord control these poisonous snakes to attack Jiang Junling? And then watch helplessly as the general order blasted Li Ya into minced meat? If that was the case, how would he explain it to Fang Yan? How would Fang Yan explain it to Du Qing? Bailey Lu had heard from Fang Yan that Du Qing had voluntarily surrendered himself to the police for his goddaughter, but in order to protect Fang Yan and the others, he had gritted his teeth and refused to let go. He had suffered a lot in prison, and even his life was in danger. "Come on!" Jiang Junling roared at the Snake Lord. "Come on, come and kill me. Didn't you want to avenge your sister? Why don't you do it? Just like how you just poisoned your own sister. Come on, do it." Chapter 8:20. What? Have you forgotten how your sister died? Don't you hate me anymore? Is this the backbone of the Snake Monarch Snake Slave clan? No wonder you can only be slaves, because you can't even stand up. You can only be reptiles forever. The Snake Monarch's eyes burned fiercer, and the whimpers from his mouth became louder. The poisonous snakes lost their minds under the influence of the song of the frightening snake. They bared their fangs and hissed as they attacked Jiang Junling and the black-clothed men around him. Pa! Some of the black-clothed men fired at the approaching poisonous snakes, smashing the huge snake's head. Blood splattered everywhere, but this only enraged their companions even more. More poisonous snakes rushed over, and more black-clothed men fired at the snake formation. Pa, pa, pa. The sound of gunfire was dense and incessant. Jiang Junling had a mocking smile on his face. Why don't you let those poisonous snakes attack me? What? Are you going to let me go? But don't forget, I was the one who forced your sister to die, or are you forced by their feelings and have already given up on the idea of revenge? The snake monarch's forehead was dripping with sweat. The veins on his hand that was holding the instrument were bulging, and it was already trembling violently. The music he played was sometimes loud and sometimes soothing. The poisonous snakes sometimes advanced with bloodshot eyes, and sometimes looked around blankly, not knowing what to do. Everyone could see that Feng Wang was very hesitant at this moment. He wanted to kill Jiang Junling, and he had to kill Jiang Junling, because that was the only way he could avenge his sister. But he couldn't kill Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling had Li Ya as a hostage, and he knew better than anyone how important Li Ya was. She was Du Qing's adopted daughter. Although there was the word adopted in her name, Du Qing regarded her as his own. Du Qing and Feng Yan were brothers. Du Qing was the reason why Feng Yan was able to control Flower City. Most importantly, Du Qing went to jail for Li Ya, and in order to protect Feng Yan, he refused to let go. He clenched his teeth and refused to drag Feng Yan into this mess. Just based on this, Feng Yan owed him a huge favor. Otherwise, would Feng Yan have the chance to run to Beijing to ask for reinforcements? He had been locked up with Du Qing a long time ago. He could hear the concern that Feng Yingying and Feng Haohan had for Li Ya. He also knew that Bai Lilu also did not want him to do anything that would endanger Li Ya's life at this time, but his sister was dead. His sister had been poisoned to death by him. Her body was still lying in front of him. Was he going to give up just like that? Was he going to pretend that nothing had happened? He could have taken his revenge. All he needed to do was play this musical instrument to chase those poisonous snakes away, and he would be able to do what he wanted to do. Why couldn't he do that? Li Ya is a human, your sister is also a human. Jiang Junling was still inciting the Snake Lord's mind. His voice had a seductive charm as he said, "Why is your sister's life inferior to Li Ya's? Why can't you take revenge for your dead sister? Are you very sad? Are you very desperate? Did you only realize at this time that Feng Yan and I are no different? I use force to use people, but Feng Yan uses feelings. He uses hypocritical affection to manipulate you. What's the difference? Why do you think that Feng Yan values affection more than me? Is it like this? Isn't it more difficult to use emotions to manipulate people's hearts?" Jiang Junling, the Snake Lord shouted through gritted teeth. He stopped playing, put the musical instrument to his mouth, and said fiercely, "I will let you suffer the pain of 10,000 snakes biting your heart." Jiang Junling shook his head and sighed. "Now that the opportunity is in front of you, you don't dare to do anything. What's the point of saying these threatening words? Aren't you just asking to be humiliated?" Jiang Junling, don't go too far. Bai Lilu knew that Feng Yan had made a decision. In the end, he still chose Feng Yan and chose to temporarily give up the hatred in his heart. For this man, taking a step forward represented bravery. But taking a step back represented wisdom. He chose wisdom and chose to look at the big picture. Bai Lilu finally understood why Feng Yan valued him so much. Why Feng Yan made him trust him wholeheartedly. You understand what Feng Yan's actions represent. You know that temporarily giving up his hatred is smarter than driving the poisonous snakes to perish together with you. You underestimate him. He is not as idiotic as you think. Bai Lilu bluntly exposed Jiang Junling's evil plan and said, "You don't have to sow dissension in the middle anymore. You want to compare yourself with Feng Yan? Do you deserve it?" Feng Yan gave people the freedom of their bodies and also gave them an independent personality. He treats everyone as a friend and thinks of others wholeheartedly. Putting ourselves in his shoes as Feng Yan's friends, can't we feel his sincerity? Why did I come all the way here to risk my life for him? Isn't it because I regard him as a friend? Why can Feng Yan even give up the revenge of his sister's murder? It's also because he feels that Feng Yan regards him as a friend. He understands Feng Yan's painstaking efforts, and he also knows the situation Feng Yan needs. Feng Yan is willing to sacrifice for us, and we are also willing to sacrifice for Feng Yan. Because we all know in our hearts that Feng Yan will pay us back in the future. Bailey Lu looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Young Master Jiang, will you pay us back?" Jiang Junling raised his head and thought for a moment, then said, "This question is really difficult for me. Pay us back? I'm sorry, I've never thought of such a complicated question. Because what I can give them, I've given them all a long time ago. Because of their extraordinary background, everything in the world was given to them. Everyone flattered and praised them, and the best treasures revolved around them. Every time he accepted someone's flattery, those people would be so excited that their faces would turn red, as if they had received a great reward. Growing up in such an environment, who would still talk to him about paying them back? He only needed to accept it because accepting it was already a kind of kindness. Jiang Junling looked at Bailey Lu and said, "All right, now you don't dare to kill me, so what do you want to do next?" Jiang Junling took out a remote control from his pocket and pressed a red button on it. The genetic handcuff on Li Ya's hand immediately beeped as an alarm. Jiang Junling looked at Bailey Lu and said with a smile, "If you can't leave in 2 minutes, this handcuff will explode her into air. You know that state." "All right, it's already been 30 seconds. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked at Bailey Lu, and the Snake Lord also glanced at Bailey Lu from the corner of his eyes. Obviously, when Fang Yan wasn't here, Bailey Lu had become the most decisive person here. "I want to take the 3 of them." Bailey Lu pointed at Fang Yingying, Fang Haohen, and Li Ya, and said, "Otherwise, I'd rather waste time with you." "What a pity." Jiang Junling looked at Li Ya, sighed and said, "She's quite a beautiful girl. Unfortunately, she has to say goodbye to you forever." It was impossible for Jiang Junling to let anyone take Li Ya away. If Li Ya was taken away, it meant that what they had been doing during this period of time had ended in failure. Jiang Junling was a person who didn't like failure. "Jiang Junling, you should know that if Li Ya dies, you won't be able to live. I know you're not afraid of death, but dying in the mouths of these poisonous snakes isn't the best outcome for you, right? You have to think about Fang Yan. Fang Yan is still alive and well. Didn't you agree to be enemies for life? If you die, wouldn't Fang Yan be too lonely alone?" Bailey Lu urged anxiously. He didn't even hesitate to throw Fang Yan out to attract hatred, so that Jiang Junling would always stay awake and not do anything stupid. His eyes stared at the silver remote control in Jiang Junling's hand, looking at the flashing red button on it. He was burning with anxiety, but there was nothing he could do. He wanted to rush forward and snatch the remote control, but he was worried that the moment he moved, Jiang Junling would resolutely press the remote control. He knew that Jiang Junling was the disciple of Tao addict Song Zaniang. Tao addict Song Zaniang was the most powerful among the 7 addicts. He was even far more powerful than the so-called 3 secrets and 7 mysteries of Taoism. He was one of the top masters in Wuxia. As the disciple of Song Zaniang, his strength should not be underestimated, right? "I know what you're thinking." Jiang Junling stared at Bailey Lu and said in a sharp voice, "Believe me, before you do anything, Li Ya may have died in your hands. I don't want her to die, and I think you guys are the same, so get out of here immediately. Take those disgusting poisonous creatures with you. Otherwise, I won't have time to cancel the bomb button." Screech. It was the sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh. Jiang Junling's expression was horrified, and he looked incredulous. He looked down and found that a slender sharp knife had pierced through his chest, and the bleeding blade was exposed to the air. "How?" Jiang Junling's voice was filled with grief and indignation. There was anger, reluctance, and most of all, it was the unbearable betrayal. He had ambitions, he had a great goal, he still had a great revenge to take, and he still had a home to return to. He had a lot of things to do, and he was still so young. But was it all going to end here? It shouldn't be like this. There really isn't enough time. A man's voice sounded behind him. A big hand reached over, grabbed the remote control from Jiang Junling's hand, and pressed the black cancel button. "I never thought." Jiang Junling's mouth was bleeding, and his voice was filled with indescribable grief. "It's you." Chapter 821. There was no grace or warmth in that stab. He seemed to be very heartless. It pierced through the back, through the flesh and the gaps in the skeleton, the vital organs, and then revealed the blood-stained blade from the chest. It was a beautiful heart-piercing stab. This was a fatal attack, without any consideration for feelings, and without the slightest bit of mercy. When the knife was stabbed out, it did not think that the person who was stabbed could still live. The person who sneaked up on him stabbed him cleanly, and Jiang Junling also died cleanly. There was not much time to react, and there was not the slightest bit of defense. From the moment he saw the tip of the knife that should not have come out of his chest to the moment his body lost strength and fell to the ground, he could not say much during the process. He could not even complete a sentence of condemnation. Jiang Junling was dead. In the most humiliating way. He was stabbed in the back by the person he trusted the most, and died with a single blow. If the underworld held a celebration to welcome the Mid-Autumn Festival and chose the person who died the most aggrieved death this year, the only person who could defeat Jiang Junling would be his master, Song Zanyang. The only person who could challenge Song Zanyang's throne would probably be Jiang Junling. The master and disciple would firmly occupy the top 2 places on the list of humiliation. Jiang Junling, this was really a person worthy of being written about. He became famous at a young age, his outstanding talent, his heroic appearance, his scandal with Qin Yitian. He was not the eldest son of the general family, but he suppressed his brother and many of the younger generation of the family to the point where they could not lift their heads. He had never lost before he met Fang Yan, but he had never won after meeting Fang Yan. It had to be admitted that there was indeed a fact in this world that everything had its vanquisher, and a person had its vanquisher. Jiang Junling and Fang Yan were the best examples. An ambitious person of a generation had fallen. His unwillingness, his anger, the blueprint in his heart, his lofty ideals, and his hatred all turned to dust at this moment. No one cared about what he had thought before, he was already a dead man anyway. The winter wind was a little dry and cold, but the atmosphere was even colder. Not only did Jiang Junling not expect it, but Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen also didn't expect it. Of course, in Bailey Lu's opinion, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen had low IQs, so they didn't expect it to be possible. However, Bailey Lu didn't expect that the situation would develop like this. This was more exciting and shocking than the Snake Lord poisoning his sister with a fire scorpion. Because they were too surprised, they didn't realize what had happened until Jiang Junling's body fell on the beach. Liya, who had removed the danger of the jean handcuffs exploding, forgot to escape. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, who were captured, forgot to counterattack. Bai Lilu forgot to make a move. Those Black G people and those worshippers raised by Jiang Junling actually forgot to take revenge. Kill! The gloomy man's voice rang out again. As he spoke, he had already cut off the neck of a man in black next to him. The long knife drew a beautiful arc in the air, then quickly fell, and stabbed into the neck of a man in black who had just reacted and was ready to fight back. He took the lead, like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, and madly killed the men in black who used to be his companions. Bailey Lu finally reacted and shouted, "Go!" He punched out with both fists, and the 2 men in black who were holding Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen raised their guns and wanted to fight back. Their heads flew up, like a beautiful parabola. And the pistols that were in their hands just now had actually fallen into Bailey Lu's hands. Pa pa pa! Bailey Lu pulled the trigger and madly shot at the men in black who had no leader and still didn't understand what had happened. Fang Haohen regained his freedom and immediately rushed towards Liya. Liya was the only woman at the scene who didn't have the ability to protect herself. Fang Haohen was worried that she would be in danger in this fierce fight. Fang Yingying's body rolled on the ground, picked up a pistol that had fallen, and shot the crotch of a man in black. Don't ask why he shot the crotch. When he got up from the ground, the muzzle just happened to be aimed at that undignified position. The bastard who had just forced him to urge the snake to attack, and shouted for him to kill his enemy, actually died so quickly in front of him. The scene in front of him changed too quickly, and it made Fang Haohen feel very unreal. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Jiang Junling was already dead. That was the general's order that everyone knew, the general's order that was full of schemes, the general's order that was on par with Qin Yitian's. Forget it, I'm not going to say that slogan anymore. that young mistress of the Qin family would definitely not like it. That was Fang Yan's archenemy, Jiang Junling, who was also the young master of the general family who hated and killed Fang Yan for several years. Such a person was stabbed through with a knife? Even if he was also at the scene, Snake Lord couldn't believe what he saw. However, he still had to react. He said that he wanted Jiang Junling to suffer the pain of thousands of snakes biting his heart. A man should keep his word. If he said he would treat you to KFC, he would never treat you to McDonald's. Therefore, Snake Lord blew the fighting snake song, urging the densely packed snake formation to crawl toward the General Ling's body, which gave people goosebumps all over their bodies. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The scene was too horrible to look at. Seeing Snake Lord's reaction, Bailey Lu immediately felt that the power in his body was out of control. Now that the enemy was right in front of them, and there were still many of Jiang Junling's henchmen and the group of men in black with weapons in their hands hadn't been dealt with, Fang Yan, that idiot, actually drove the snake formation to deal with a corpse? But thinking of the misunderstanding just now and his unforgettable hatred for Jiang Junling, he could only forgive his stupid behavior. While thinking of this, Bailey Lu kicked a man in black who was about to activate the genetic bomb and die with everyone into the sea. Boom! The genetic bomb exploded in the sea, rolling up a wave several meters high. No one cared about the life or death of the man in black. Perhaps he was already a dead man the moment he fell into the water. This was a one-sided massacre. When Fang Yan returned to Swallow Dock, he saw that there were guests at his house. His grandfather, Fang Hui, was drinking tea and chatting with the guests. Seeing that Fang Yan had returned, Fang Hui laughed and scolded him. "Kid, you've been away for most of the day. You made Master wait for so long." "Master, why are you here?" Fang Yan asked in surprise. He didn't expect that his master, Tianjizi, would come to Swallow Dock. Tianjizi's long robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked like an immortal. Stroking his long beard, he looked at Fang Yan lovingly and said, "Swallow Dock is a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. I've admired it for a long time, and I've finally come here. I've benefited a lot from the long talk with Elder Fang." Tianjizi's status in Jianghu was far higher than Fang Hui's, but Fang Hui was older. Therefore, Tianjizi's words were very respectful. Moreover, although Fang Hui's legs were disabled, his mind was active and his wisdom was as vast as the sea. Even a Daoist expert like Tianjizi might not be able to win any verbal advantage in front of him. Tianjizi said that he benefited a lot, mainly because Fang Hui's way of thinking had affected his thinking. "You flatter me, Daoist. I'm old and muddle-headed. Please forgive me if I said something wrong." Fang Hui laughed and looked at Fang Yan, saying, "You master and disciple have a chat. I'll go to the backyard to accompany my bird." "Elder Fang, please wait." Tianjizi stopped him. Fang Hui was about to leave in his wheelchair when he heard Tianjizi's words. He turned around and asked, "What can I do for you, Elder Fang?" "Elder Fang, do you have a leg problem?" Tianjizi stared at Fang Hui's legs on the wheelchair and asked. "I've been disabled for many years," Fang Hui said quite frankly. He had long accepted this fate. "May I ask what caused it?" Tianjizi continued to ask. Fang Yan's eyes lit up and he hurriedly answered, "Grandpa was a hero in Jianghu. He was the first to put forward the idea of hard fighting in Tai Chi, and he was also the one who carried forward hard Tai Chi later. He was injured in a martial arts competition and couldn't stand up anymore. "Master, can you save my grandpa?" Fang Hui's expression changed slightly, and then he asked with a look of surprise, "Is this true?" Tianjizi smiled without answering and said, "Can I have a look?" "As you wish," Fang Hui said with a laugh. "It's already rotten wood and withered branches. It's useless to keep it and inelegant to discard it." Fang Yan hurriedly went forward and rolled up his grandpa's trouser leg. Tianjizi squatted down and put 2 fingers on the inside of Fang Hui's leg. After a long time, Tianjizi said in a deep voice, "His vital energy has been cut off." The hope on Fang Hui's face turned into disappointment, and then returned to normal in an instant. He said with a smile, "Thank you, Elder Daoist." I've been paralyzed for many years, and I don't have any expectations. When I was paralyzed, I always fantasized that I could stand up. I went everywhere to ask for medicine, hoping for a miracle. But later, I was disappointed too many times, and my heart became cold. Sometimes, people have to accept their fate. Fang Yan didn't give up. He looked at Tianjizi and asked, "Master, can you save him?" "It's not impossible," Tianjizi said with a smile. "Let me have a try." Old Master Fang Hui's eyes widened again. Was this master and disciple playing with this old guy? Just now, he had already said that his vital energy had been severed, which sent chills down everyone's spines. Not only that, he even said that it was fine and that he wouldn't mind. As a martial arts madman who viewed martial arts as his life, how could he not care about such a thing? He had already accepted his fate, so why did he say that it was not impossible? If it weren't for the fact that the fall guy was his grandson, he would have suspected that the old Taoist was here to cheat him of money. Was there any lack of such things in the news? Those fake monks and Taoist priests specifically targeted old people like him. Chapter 8:22. Don't be full when you eat and don't be full when you speak. Fang Yan knew that Master Tianjizi was holding back. Since he was willing to help his grandpa's leg disease, it proved that he was sure that he could cure his grandpa's paralysis. At least it would improve his legs. Master Tianjizi just said that his grandpa's legs were cut off, but Fang Yan knew that his master was good at "spring comes from withered wood." If he could rejuvenate his grandpa's two withered wood legs, wouldn't that be the ultimate meaning of Taoism? "Thank you, Master," Fang Yan said gratefully. "Thank you, Master." Tianjizi nodded and walked to the back of Fang Hui's wheelchair with a horsetail whisk in his hand. Fang Hui and Fang Yan were filled with curiosity. Old Master Fang Hui's leg was clearly injured, so why did Tianjizi run to his back? The human body is like a tree, and the soul of the tree is at the root. As long as the root is not cut off, nourished by water and bathed in the sun, it will be able to rejuvenate and sprout. Tianjizi understood Fang Yan's doubts and explained aloud. Those who only know how to treat the head and legs are unqualified quacks. Most head diseases can be treated and improved in the soles of the feet. There are many acupoints on the soles of the feet, and each acupoint corresponds to the major organs of the human body. This is also the principle of barefoot health. Tianjizi held the horsetail whisk in one hand and put the other hand flat on the top of Fang Hui's head. As I said just now, Mr. Fang's legs are cut off, and it is very difficult to treat the disease from the legs. Because it is difficult to bear force there, and it is even more difficult to transfer qi. In this way, you can only get twice the result or return without any results. Tianjizi's words were quite instructive to Fang Yan. He glanced at Fang Yan and said, "You must remember." Fang Yan said respectfully, "I understand." Tianjizi nodded and didn't move, but a green light appeared in his palm. The cyan light enveloped the top of Fang Hui's head, as if it wanted to open a hole there and drill into it. A few seconds later, Fang Hui's forehead was covered in sweat. Half a minute later, Fang Hui was sweating profusely. Even his clothes were soaked. Fang Yan was surprised, but he did not disturb him. He was afraid that he would affect his master's treatment because he knew better than anyone else how much his grandfather wanted him to stand up. When Mo Qingdi's tendons were cut, he said that he hated himself for not being able to stand up. When the Fang family was looked down upon and bullied, he said that he hated himself for not being able to stand up. When Fang Yan's father, Fang Yixing, died in battle at the entrance of Swallow Dock Village, Fang Yan carried his father's corpse home. That day, Grandpa sat in the wheelchair and didn't say a word. However, Fang Yan would never forget the look in his eyes at that time. His eyes were filled with grief, despair, great guilt, and deep hatred. It was a pair of blood-red eyes. There were no tears, but it made everyone who saw it want to cry. It was also because it was difficult to forget that pair of eyes that Fang Yan blamed himself during the 3 years he was guarding his father's grave. If he had been a little earlier, if he had been a little faster, would he have been able to save his father? Would he have saved Grandpa from the most painful thing in life, where he had to see his son die before him? About 2 minutes later, Fang Hui's body began to tremble. He clenched his teeth to prevent himself from groaning in pain. His hands on the wheelchair kept trembling. His legs, which had been immobile for many years, also began to move. Although it was very small, it was still obvious that they were trembling. They moved. Fang Yan looked surprised. My legs moved. Old man Fang Hui's eyes were wide open. He felt a boiling hot torrent running through his body. Like red-hot molten steel flowing into a ditch, the blocked blood vessels and acupuncture points in his body were all forcefully opened. Taoism emphasized peace and tranquility, but when it came to treating illnesses, it was overbearing and barbaric. His body was in pain, but his heart was filled with joy. Hearing Fang Yan's voice, he wanted to grin, but because his body was in too much pain, his smile was a little distorted, and it was more like a distorted cry. They moved, Fang Hui said aloud, his voice becoming hoarse. I felt them move, this pair of old companions. We haven't been in contact for many years. When old Master Fang Hui's hair stood on end, some of them looking like they were about to be scorched, Tianjizi finally retracted his palm. He exhaled, then looked at Fang Yan and said, Elder Fang's body is weak, and it's difficult for him to bear too much aura of the Azure Bull at one time. If you force yourself to hold on, you will only faint. Let's call it a day. Elder Fang, have a good rest. Don't take a bath, just find a clean towel to wipe your body. Fang Hui knew that what Tianjizi said was the truth. Although he desperately endured for the sake of his dignity and treatment, if he persisted, his physical strength would be exhausted, and he might not be able to escape the consequence of fainting. It was good to have a temporary rest. However, he was still a little unwilling in his heart. If his legs could be cured in one go, he would be willing to accept fainting. Daoist master, my legs. Fang Hui let Fang Yan wipe the sweat off his face with a towel, then looked at Tianjizi anxiously and asked, I felt them move just now. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but for so many years, I couldn't feel their existence. They were like two pieces of wood on top of my body. Just now, I connected with them. I felt a burning sensation. Tianjizi looked at Fang Hui with a face full of smiles and said, Elder Fang, I just helped you clear the meridians in your body. Because it was the first time I did this, the effect was the best. The second and third times will be slightly weaker. However, as long as you persevere, Elder Fang's leg disease will definitely be completely healed. I can't thank you enough. Fang Hui sat in his wheelchair and bowed to Tianjizi. Tianjizi stepped aside and said, Fang Yan and I are master and disciple. Elder Fang's actions have messed up the seniority. Elder Fang, please rest. I'll have a few more words with Fang Yan. Go ahead. Fang Hui said with a smile. Fang Yan, take good care of your master for me. Grandpa, don't worry. Fang Yan said with a smile. Fang Hui said goodbye to Tianjizi, then had his manservant, Fang Fuxing, push him to his room in the backyard to tidy up. Fang Yan asked Tianjizi to sit down, then poured him a cup of hot tea, then suddenly knelt in front of Tianjizi and kowtowed 3 times. Tianjizi didn't stop him, but looked at Fang Yan and said, When we confirmed our master-disciple relationship, you didn't kneel to me. Why are you kneeling now? Thank you, master, for giving me a new lease of life. Fang Yan said with a serious face. Give you a new lease of life? Tianjizi shook his head and said, It's just to treat my leg disease. Master, you should be able to see that Grandpa's physical condition is very bad. Grandpa has loved martial arts all his life, but ever since his legs were paralyzed, he felt that life was meaningless. But in order to support the Fang family, he has been working hard to support it. Ever since my father died tragically at the village entrance 3 years ago, his body has suddenly deteriorated, and most of the spirit that supported him has been lost. Especially in the past 6 months, he has been half asleep and half awake every day, and his body has become so weak. I'm away from home, and every night I wake up from nightmares, dreaming that Grandpa is sitting in a wheelchair, waving at me, waving goodbye to me. If Master can cure Grandpa's leg, if he can stand up again, if he can practice martial arts again, I think his spirit will return, and his life will continue. Our Fang family, can no longer have anyone leave, not a single one. Fang Yan's voice was deep and sincere. As he spoke, his eyes were red, seeming to be very worried about his grandfather's body. Pity your filial piety. The divine Jizi looked at Fang Yan with a gratified expression and said, as I said earlier, it's not that your grandfather's leg can't be cured, as long as he uses the Azure Ox Chi to help him unblock and repair it, he can still stand up again. It's just that I can't stay in Swallow Dock for a long time, and this is a big problem. Fang Yan crawled up from the ground and looked at the divine Jizi. I know Master has already thought of a way. That's right. There is indeed a way to solve this problem, the divine Jizi said with a smile. Come back with me and learn my Azure Ox Chi transfer technique and my spring returns to withered wood. When you return, massage your grandfather every day, and your grandfather's leg will naturally be cured. Since ancient times, medicine and Taoism have been inseparable. At that time, you can also use this technique to help your mother's body. Her qi and blood are also weak, probably because of the worries in her heart that can't be resolved. Fang Yan frowned and said, of course I'm willing to follow Master to learn, but I'm currently trapped in a cage and there are many things that I have to deal with. It has to do with the Jiang family's coercion? Master also knows about this. There are millions of disciples in the Gate of Tao. It's very easy for me to find out a few things, the divine Jizi said with a prideful expression. Think about it, is it more useful for you to stay in the outside world and fight against the Jiang family, or is it more effective for you to follow me to the Gate of Tao? If the Jiang family knows that you're following me to the Gate of Tao, some of them will definitely be more cautious, and some things will naturally be done more discreetly. Furthermore, once you join my Gate of Tao, the millions of disciples will be your staunch support. At that time, who would dare to bully you? Chapter 8:23. Taoism was the sect of all Daoists. Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Although Taoism had declined in recent years and was the weakest of the three, it had a heritage of 1,000 years. However, it had been passed down for thousands of years, so it naturally had a deep foundation. Be it wealth or combat strength, it was not something others could compete with. Even if it was a family of generals that was as wealthy as a nation, if they really offended the Daoists, they might not be able to gain any advantage. Just as his master, Divine Jizi, said, if there were 10 million Daoist disciples backing Fang Yan, the general family would not be able to do anything to him. At the very least, his life would be guaranteed. However, Fang Yan still couldn't agree to it. Or rather, he couldn't casually agree to it. Fang Yan looked warily at Divine Jizi and asked with a smile, Master, tell me directly. What do you want me to do? Don't think that monks weren't human, and don't think that monks didn't have smart people. His master, Divine Jizi, had rushed all the way to Swallow Dock. If it was just to treat his grandfather's leg, Fang Yan would never believe it. He had repeatedly enticed him to head to the Daoists and even said that he was willing to have 10 million Daoist disciples backing him. Then what did he want? Or rather, what did the Daoists want? Without figuring this out, Fang Yan didn't have the courage to close his eyes and follow his master to the Daoists. Although he was very willing to believe in his master. Do you still remember what I told you about the Taiji painting? Divine Jizi asked in a deep voice. Yes. Fang Yan's mind stirred as he asked, what happened? Not long ago, one of the 3 dragons of Wuxia, Black Dragon, headed to the immeasurable temple to steal the Taiji painting. Divine Jizi's eyes were filled with anger as he said, the immeasurable temple is where the dignity of the Daoists lies. How can we tolerate such impudence? To forcefully plunder it, isn't this bullying us Daoists? And then? Fang Yan asked anxiously. The most mysterious of the 3 dragons of Wuxia, Black Dragon, had appeared. Furthermore, he had appeared for the Taiji painting. Black Dragon had been famous for a long time and was already a heavenly Tao realm expert. Why did he need the Taiji painting? What secrets were hidden in the Tai Chi diagram? The Black Dragon injured Qing Xian, the book reader of the Fanghua Pavilion. The Taichung sect master discovered the enemy and fought with him. The Black Dragon saw that it was difficult for him to win, so he escaped under the cover of night. The Tai Chi painting wasn't stolen, was it? Of course. The Taiji diagram is the Tao sect's supreme treasure. How can it be casually taken away by someone? After pondering for a while, Fang Yen looked at Tianjizi and said, "At that time, the two masters were looking for the guardian of the Tai Chi diagram. I wonder if you have found the fated person." Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen and said, "Whether we are fated or not, we have to see the Tai Chi painting first. Fang Yen, are you willing to give it a try?" "Why me?" Fang Yen asked. "Because we are fated," Tianjizi said. "I have always been looking for a fated person. However, you and I are fated. Isn't it also fated with the Tai Chi painting? When Tyrant and I first saw you, we had already included you in our list of candidates. However, at that time, you were too vicious and frivolous. It was difficult for you to bear the heavy responsibility." "Master, in fact, I am quite frivolous now," Fang Yen said hurriedly. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen with a burning gaze and asked, "Until today, you are still unwilling to bear this responsibility?" "Master, I am too tired." Fang Yen looked at his master Tianjizi sincerely and said, "I want to protect this family, and I am already exhausted. How would they be able to protect this country and its people? I am afraid of suffering and tiredness. I just want to rest. Let me take a breather." There was a faint smile on Fang Yan's face, as if a gust of wind could blow it away without a trace. "I am a lazy person. If possible, I just want to find a school and be a leisurely teacher who stands aloof from worldly affairs. But I have been forced to this step. Every step is filled with danger, and every step is filled with danger. Master, I am afraid. I am afraid that if I die, our Fang family will be finished. My grandpa is old and weak, my mother is sick because of long-term worry, and I haven't even married a wife. If I die, our Fang family will be ruined. I am not a bad person, and I am not a coward. When the country needs me, I am willing to stand up and fight for it. Like the countless heroes and sages of our Swallow Dock, I am willing to fight for the prosperity of the country and the destiny of the people. But I don't want to take the initiative to meet them. I don't want to carry those responsibilities on my shoulders all the time. I don't want to suppress myself to the point that I can't breathe. I don't want to think that I'm the guardian of the Taiji painting every time I wake up from my sleep. Is there anything that I didn't do well or do well? Master, my biggest dream is to take good care of my grandpa's health, to make my mother happy, to marry a wife and have several children, and then to live happily with my family. Oh, by the way, Master, I'm going to get married. Yi-Ro, she is a very good girl." Tianjizi pondered for a long time, then looked at Fang Yen and asked, "If I give you the Tai Chi diagram, do you want it?" "Yes," Fang Yen answered without hesitation. Whoever didn't want it was an idiot, but just because I took the Tai Chi diagram, you can't treat me as the guardian of the nation. Someone in the east invaded the border, looking for Fang Yen. Someone killed someone in the west, looking for Fang Yen. A cow disappeared in the south, looking for Fang Yen. Whose daughter-in-law in the north didn't get pregnant, looking for Fang Yen? Fang Yen hoped that he was an independent individual with his own thoughts, not a puppet held hostage by national righteousness. "Come with me," Tianjizi said. "Master?" Fang Yen was shocked. "You really gave me the Tai Chi diagram? As you said just now, you are not a bad person, let alone a coward. You already have the basic conditions to obtain the Tai Chi diagram. Daoists pay attention to naturalness, and they will never force others with their own will. Don't worry, even if you get the Tai Chi diagram, you are still Fang Yen. Just like how Imo Qingdi was still Imo Qingdi even after he got the Tai Chi diagram. Master, I'm going to pack up now, let's go immediately," Fang Yen said excitedly. "Your grandfather asked me to stay for lunch." Tianjizi said helplessly. "Is this kid driving me away?" "Oh, is that so?" Fang Yen was stunned for a moment, then said, "Then I'll go pack up first. We'll leave whenever you say so." It had just rained on Monkey Mountain, so the entire forest had been washed. The leaves were clear and beautiful, and the rocks were bright. The Daoist temple that was built at the edge of the cliff gave people an even more mysterious feeling, as if it was a divine temple. Fang Yen had been in Wuliang Temple for 3 days. Except for his master, Tianjizi, who brought him in, everyone else in the Taoist temple treated him like an invisible person. This was a little different from what he had expected. A talented young man like him was the hope of Taoism's resurgence. His master personally went to Swallow Dock to invite him. When he arrived at Wuliang Temple, the Taoist Taichung school led the legendary 3 mysteries and 7 mysteries to welcome him. Taichung stroked his beard and looked at him. He laughed and pointed at him and said, "This kid has a good foundation and is extremely talented. In the future, the important task of guarding Taoism will be handed over to you." Then, he took his hand and walked into the main hall. Under the gaze of the Taoist gods and countless Taoist elites, he took out the Tai Chi diagram and handed it to him. If he refused, Taichung would give it to him. If he refused again, Taichung would be furious and say that this was what the people of Taoism all over the world wanted. Fang Yen did not see the legendary Taichung schoolmaster. He did not even see the other 2 of the 3 mysteries and 7 mysteries. Don't they realize how important I am? Fang Yen suspected that he had been deceived by his master. They had brought him to Wuliang Temple on purpose to put him under house arrest. But why did they want to imprison him? Could it be that they were also bribed by the Jiang family? Fang Yen thought to himself. Then he immediately pushed this thought out of his mind. If the Jiang family can even bribe the Taoist sect, then I don't have to resist. I can just extend my head and let them chop it off. The only thing that satisfied Fang Yen was that the living conditions in Wuliang Temple were not bad. There was a balcony in his room. The balcony was suspended in the air, and if he stepped on it, he would see a cliff that was 10,000 feet high. The mountain breeze blew, and the fog lingered. The distant mountains were like an ink painting, decorated with red and green, making people feel relaxed and happy. There was also Wuliang Temple's specialty, ambergris, to refresh his mouth. This kind of tea could not be drunk outside. Fang Yen could not bear to drink too much, so he hid a small pot of tea that the Taoist priest had given him and prepared to bring it back to his grandfather. His grandfather liked to drink this tea, and it was good for his body. Knock, knock, knock. There was a light knock on the door. Fang Yen walked over and opened the door. His master, Tianjizi, was standing at the door with a smile. "Master, you finally appeared." Fang Yen pulled his master's sleeve and said, "Where is the Tai Chi diagram? Didn't you say that you would give it to me?" Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen with a smile and said, "After the rain, the weather is late and autumn is coming. The mountains are beautiful, the scenery is good, and the air is good. Why are you always cooped up in the room? Come, I will take you out for a walk." "Master." Fang Yen was not in the mood to look at the scenery. Chaoyan technology was being attacked by the Jiang family, and the willow tree in Lan Mountain Valley was still resisting the endless methods of the Jiang family. Although the Qin family had gone down the mountain to participate in the battle, their support was limited. The Jiang family was attacking with all their might, and the strength of the 2 was different. Most of the attacks had to be resolved by Fang Yen and the others themselves. Fang Yen only wanted to obtain the Tai Chi diagram as soon as possible, unravel the secrets within, discover the ultimate technique inside, and then quickly return to Flower City to kill everyone. When your mind is in a mess, all you see is negative karma. Tianjizi said unfathomably, "Put down your burden and run to nature." "Master, if you don't give me the Tai Chi diagram, I will run to Swallow Dock." Chapter 8:24. You have no understanding. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen with disappointment. He was very disappointed with his disciple. "I have said it so bluntly, but you don't understand anything. Master, with all due respect, you are not straightforward at all. What do you want to say? Are you going to give me the Tai Chi diagram or not? Didn't I tell you to go out to see the scenery and breathe the fresh air? I asked about the Tai Chi diagram, but you asked me to see the scenery. Master, don't play with me, okay? I'm stupid. It's not fun." Tianjizi felt that his breathing became heavy. He wanted to use his 12 palms of the Celestial Master to slap Fang Yen into meat paste. Inexplicably, How did he get such a disciple? If possible, Tianjizi really wanted to return it. If you don't go out to see the scenery, how can you find the scenery you want to see? Tianjizi forcibly suppressed the hostility in his heart with the lousy mind-clearing mantra and said while looking into Fang Yan's eyes. Worried that he still didn't understand, he blinked his eyes cutely. Master, tell me the truth. Are you going to give me the Tai Chi diagram or not? Why did you blink? Tianjizi took Fang Yan for a walk in the yard, muttering, the beauty of heaven and earth is in the mountains, in the water, in the air, in the breeze, in the moon, in the river. In the spring sowing and autumn harvesting, in the frost, in the snow, in the flowers and plants in the yard, and in the big vat in the corner. It's not that there is no beauty in the world, but there is a lack of eyes to discover it. Fang Yan finally had a pair of eyes that could discover beauty. He strode toward the big vat in the corner of the yard. He stood next to the big vat, but there was no movement in the vat. Master. Fang Yan turned around and called out. His eyes searched around, but he found that he had lost his master. Fang Yan was stunned for a while, and his face became dignified. He picked up a small pebble from the ground and threw it into the big vat. The pebbles splashed with tiny splashes of water, and ripples formed on the surface of the water tank. When the ripples disappeared, the mirror surface of the water tank became calm again. Fang Yan craned his neck to look into the vat. The water was pitch black and seemed bottomless. This was just an ordinary water tank. Many people would set up such a large tank in their yard to raise fish or grow some aquatic plants. However, Fang Yan had an illusion that when he stood in front of the water tank, his heart was pounding fiercely, as if there was a dangerous monster hiding inside, or something important was about to happen. Rain began to fall from the sky again, falling into the water tank. Tiny but beautiful ripples appeared on the surface of the water. The bottom of the water tank had green plants growing wildly, and the bottom of the water tank was covered with dense moss. A snail was carrying a backpack and trying to climb a mountain to a water tank. After climbing a few centimeters with great difficulty, it slipped and fell. It shook its head and tried again. However, all of this was meaningless to Fang Yan. He stretched out his hand and opened it in the air. The tiny raindrops made his palm wet. It's raining. Fang Yan sighed softly. When he turned around and was about to leave, the expression on his face suddenly became strange. His heart pounded again, and an emotion called joy filled his whole body. He turned around abruptly and saw a shocking scene. On the mirror surface of the water tank, two big fish, one red and one black, were blowing bubbles with their huge heads. Puff, puff, puff. One bubble after another came out of their mouths and floated on the surface of the water tank. Soon they exploded again. You guys are so cute. Fang Yan said to them with a smile. Fang Yan looked at them affectionately, as if he was looking at Yi-Ro. The two big fish, one red and one black, blinked their small eyes and looked at Fang Yan. Then, they blew a long string of bubbles at him. Puff, puff, puff. Fang Yan laughed loudly. Crack. The begonia cup made by Kai Mingfu, a porcelain master from the Qing dynasty, was smashed into pieces on the wall. General Xing's face was gloomy, his eyes cold, and there was an irrepressible ruthlessness in his voice. The whole army was wiped out? General Xing's voice was like a roar. How could the whole army be wiped out? Second young master hid very well, but he was still stepped on by Fang Yan's two martial nephews, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. The Snake Lord controlled the snake formation to trap second young master. In a moment of desperation, second young master ignited the genetic bomb, so everyone died. Everyone is dead. General Xing panted heavily. He took a cigar from the box in front of him. After carefully trimming it, he lit it and took a deep puff. In the process of doing this, his state of mind finally calmed down. His eyes were like ghosts in the smoke. He looked at the man in black in front of him and said, "What about you? Why are you still alive?" "Because the heavens want me to live," the black-clothed man said in a heavy voice. "Fang Yan is not dead, so I have to live well." "You don't help?" "I've tried, but I failed." The black-clothed man calmly faced General Xing's scrutiny and doubt. He said, "Perhaps I can't turn defeat into victory, But if I want to leave, they can't keep me. Even though he was just a dog of the general family, the black-clothed man had an arrogance that would not allow others to look down on or insult him. General Xing also knew that he was very confident when he said these words. General Xing knew that his probing was too obvious. He took a cigar from the box and threw it over. The black-clothed man caught the cigar and then returned it. He said, "I don't smoke. You're living a boring life." General Xing laughed and teased. "I'm not suspecting you of anything. It's just that this matter is too strange, and this news really does make one's heart feel bad. No matter what, he is my younger brother. Tell me, how should I go back and talk to the old man about this? He always had high hopes for him, but now this hope has been cut off by someone. He must not be in a good mood, right?" The black-clothed man did not answer. He knew that General Xing had no intention of letting him answer this question. General Xing looked at the black-clothed man in front of him and said, "You should know that you and I are grasshoppers on the same boat. In this world, besides the general family, no one can protect you." "I understand," the black-clothed man said. "You are a smart person." General Xing nodded his head with incomparable appreciation. He said, "I'm very happy that you were able to send this news to me. Then, from today onwards, we are friends, right?" The black-clothed man was silent for a while. He said, "I don't have the qualifications to be friends with you." "Ha!" General Xing laughed loudly. He pointed at the black-clothed man and said, "How could that be? You're a bastard and so am I. We should be friends from birth, right?" A smile appeared on the black-clothed man's face. He was also amused by General Xing's self-deprecating words. General Xing stood up and said, "The white-haired person sending off the black-haired person, this is truly a tragedy. I really don't want the old man's body to be harmed because of this matter, but I still have to tell him. He has to take care of the important matters of the family." The black-clothed man bowed as General Xing left. His body also disappeared into the darkness. The old man, who was tending to the precious camellia in the courtyard, stopped moving. His body stiffened as if he had been magically frozen. First was surprise and disbelief, then undisguised sorrow. "Is the news confirmed?" "It's confirmed," General Xing said in a low voice. "Although my brother has left the general family, he has been secretly contacting me. It's not easy for him outside, and I have done my best to support him with money and various other resources. After receiving the news, I tried to contact him again, but I still haven't received a response. His assistant has also disappeared. It seems that he's also dead. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse." The old man used a great deal of effort to straighten his back. He took off the cotton gloves on his hands and rubbed his calloused hands together. He said, "No matter what, you have to bring him back to me." "I will," General Xing said with a serious expression. "I've already sent people out to search. No matter what, you have to bring my brother back." The old man sat down on a rattan chair under the eaves. Because he used too much force, the chair creaked. General Xing handed over a cup of hot tea, but the old man did not reach out to take it. "I was the one who chased him out, so I have to bring him back." The old man muttered to himself. "If he's really gone, find a way to bury him in the Jiang family's ancestral grave." General Xing nodded again and said as if he was making a promise, "Grandpa, don't worry. I'll arrange it." "I regret it," the old man said softly. "What?" General Xing was stunned, not understanding why his grandfather would say such a thing. He had roamed his entire life and experienced countless battles, but he had never said the word regret. "Some time ago, Sir brought Fang Yan to our home as a guest and had the intention of making peace, but I refused," Jiang Shifu old man said with a sorrowful expression. "If I wasn't so extreme and stubborn at that time, I would have called back the military order to apologize and compensate him as much as he should have. This matter wouldn't have developed to this stage, and the military order wouldn't have ended up like this." General Xing was silent. He thought to himself, with his understanding of Fang Yan, if it was just Jiang Junling apologizing to Fang Yan would probably not accept it, right? But since we've already taken this step, Jiang Shifu old man's hand gripped the handle of the rattan chair so hard that the old twigs creaked. Then let's do our best. The Jiang family and Fang Yen will not rest until one of us is dead. Chapter 825. There was no bright moon, and not a single star. The entire sky was pitch black, just like what they were feeling at this moment. No one would have thought that a fight with an insignificant young man would develop into such a situation. It wasn't as if the Jiang family hadn't stepped on anyone before. There were many youths who were praised as brimming with talent, who still couldn't stand out. Their lives were mediocre, and they spent their lives in sullenness and poverty. Because of their downfall, it naturally affected their descendants. Their entire family would have to pay the price for their foolishness and ignorance of the times. At that time, they should have felt regret, right? But why had things developed in a direction they had never imagined after encountering Fang Yen? General Xing had never thought that the Jiang family would lose, much less that someone from the Jiang family would die. It should be the enemy of the Jiang family that had died. Grandfather Jiang Shifu's voice was very calm, but his words were filled with bone-deep hatred. General Xing knew that his grandfather had finally made his final decision. He would support him and Fang Yen unreservedly, until one side died in battle. Of course, General Xing knew that the one who would die in battle would definitely be Fang Yen, because even now, General Xing still didn't believe that Fang Yen would be able to stop the Jiang family's aircraft carrier, which was moving at full speed. Of course, he would be happy to see such an outcome. I will do my best. General Xing looked at his grandfather and said, I also have the confidence to avenge my younger brother. It's just that the Qin family has always been on the edge of the battlefield, which has brought us great trouble. For now, we still can't understand the Qin family's intentions. If we use too much force, I'm afraid the Qin family will get even more involved, and we will have to first face the pressure the Qin family will bring us. At that time, the Qin family will become our main opponent. If we use too little force and the Qin family doesn't feel the danger, then they will continue to fish in troubled waters, and take a vicious bite when we are unprepared. That is also extremely dangerous. Tomorrow, I'll go to the Qin family to find an old friend for tea, Grandfather Jiang Shifu said. Jiang Shifu said, it's time for you and that girl to give the Qin family an explanation. I'm sorry, General Xing said with a guilty expression. I've caused trouble for grandfather. Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, military order. I once had high hopes for him, but he disappointed me later on. I don't want that to happen to you. General Xing's eyes flashed with the light of swords as he said, I will make Fang Yen pay the heaviest price for what he has done. Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, do your job well and take care of your health. General Xing stood up, bowed deeply to his grandfather, then turned around and walked out the door. After sending off the general, the tigress walked to the old man and said, Master, who do you think killed the military order? The old man asked. I don't know, the tigress said without hesitation. The old man smiled bitterly and said, you are quite smart to not want to get involved in these troublesome matters. Go and check it out. See if this grandson of mine is still my grandson. The tigress replied and strode away. The old man sat in the courtyard and sighed heavily. He thought of Fang Hui, the old man who also lost his son. When he found out that his son died at the entrance of the village, his mood should be the same as mine, as cold to the bone, right? Winter is coming. Jiang Shifu old man pulled the front of his clothes and sighed softly. Yanjing. Maple Leaf Club. Luo Mingan stood at the entrance of the club, personally greeting every guest. Tonight, Maple Leaf Club will host a charity dinner. The proceeds will be donated to a group of nuns to help them rebuild their temple. This event was personally arranged by the real boss of Maple Leaf Club, Qin Dian. One of the 3 Maple Leaves of Maple Leaf Club, Luo Mingan, was in charge of this event. Luo Mingan greeted the VIPs with a smile as he looked at the elevator. She knew that woman would arrive very soon. But what made Luo Mingan confused was, since when did the Yin family and the Qin family have a relationship? She never heard that the woman from the Yin family had any sort of relationship with the woman from the Yin family. However, such a thing had happened, and she was the one who had to handle it personally. Just as she was thinking about this, the elevator door opened again. Phoenix, dressed in a cyan frock, came out holding an old nun, followed by several other nuns in cyan shirts and hats. Seeing in Xiaoxiao's dress, Luo Mingan was stunned for a moment. Because she didn't know how to greet the young lady of the Yin family. She couldn't just call her abbess or master, could she? Of course, she only hesitated for a second. Luo Mingan quickly walked towards Phoenix and said with a smile, "Missin, you're finally here. The 120 invited guests are almost all here. Would you like to go on stage and say a few words?" Phoenix came over with the help of the old nun. She looked at Luo Mingan gratefully and said, "Mingan, you've worked hard. If it weren't for you, it might have taken a long time for my masters and I to return home. I won't go on stage to say anything. I'll recite the Diamond Sutra with my masters and sisters backstage for those generous and kind people. Thank you, Missin. I'll convey your great love to everyone. I think everyone will be enthusiastic and help the masters rebuild the temple and rebuild the Sutra Pavilion." When Luo Mingan said this, her eyes were also looking at Phoenix. She had seen Phoenix once before. At that time, the woman was still proud and willful, with a spirited face and memorable red hair. Now Phoenix's hair was long and wrapped in a cyan hat. Her cheeks were thin, her eyes were deep, her temperament was calm, and she spoke gently. She seemed to be in a good state of mind. However, if the woman of the Yin family wanted to rebuild a temple, would she still need to use this kind of fundraising method? It was said that she and the nuns she brought back had lived outside for a long time and had never stepped into the Yin family. Even if the Yin family went to look for her, she would avoid them. She was hostile to her own family. Phoenix bowed to Luo Mingan and said, "Thank you again, Mingan. Missin, please go backstage and rest." Luo Mingan made an inviting gesture. Seeing Phoenix's slim back as she left with the nuns, Luo Mingan sighed softly in his heart. Why bother? Qinitian was very busy these days. In fact, she could have been less busy because she was used to handing over a lot of things to her assistants and secretaries. However, if she didn't let herself be busy, she would be in a bad mood. Therefore, she took back the things that had been handed over in the past. For some major cooperation projects, she would personally negotiate. For some dispensable meetings, she would also attend for a while. For some collaborators that she was annoyed with before, she was also willing to take a few minutes out of her busy schedule to meet them. Oh, she even went to the CEO's office to look at the afternoon tea menu. She changed the cheesecake into matcha cake, saying that the former was too fat and not suitable for weight loss. At the end of a full day, when Qinitian was ready to get off work and leave, the phone on the table rang. The assistant next to her picked up the phone and reported to Qinitian, saying, "Miss, there is a Miss Yi at the front desk asking to see you." "What?" Qinitian closed the magazine in her hand. After a moment of thought, she said, "If her surname is Yi, then she must have said that she wanted to see me, not that she wanted to see me. Is that right?" The assistant didn't think it was a surprise, because he didn't think there was anything in this world that could be hidden from this proud and beautiful woman. He nodded and said, "Yes, the secretary at the front desk did say so. Miss Yi asked to see you. Invite her up," Qinitian said. The assistant conveyed the order and hung up the phone. Qinitian thought for a while, got up from the sofa, and said, "I'd better go out to meet her. After all, she is a guest from afar." The personal secretary brought up a pair of high heels and a coat, and the assistants packed up and followed Qinitian out of the door. Ding! When the elevator arrived, Yi Ro appeared in the exclusive elevator for Qinitian. Yi Ro looked at Qinitian, who was standing at the door, to greet her, and her expression didn't change at all. It seemed that this kind of thing was also within her expectation. She looked at Qinitian and explained, "I thought you should be here, so I came to meet you. I hope I didn't disturb you." Qinitian nodded, like a proud little swan, and turned around and said, "Please come with me." After entering the office, she said to the secretaries and assistants around her, "You can all leave now. Don't come in without my order. Miss, Do you want some tea? Or coffee? The secretary asked with embarrassment. No need, Qin Etian said. Not now. Clang. The luxurious door of the office was slammed shut. Qin Etian looked at Yi Ro and said, Are you here to make fun of me? After a pause, she shook her head and said, No. You are not that kind of shallow woman. She seriously looked at Yi Ro standing in front of her and said, So, are you here to comfort me? She shook her head again and said, No, this is not something you can do. Then, Miss Yi, why did you come to see me? Chapter 8:26. In ancient times, there was a saying that a king couldn't meet another king. Now, there was a saying that the first branch couldn't meet the mistress. When two or more women were together, the fierceness of the fight could be compared to a small-scale war. One was a powerhouse who stood at the peak of martial arts, and the other was a queen who was as rich as a country. Any man who was able to gain the favor of one of them would be a great blessing to his ancestors. However, Fang Yan just had deep feelings for these two women. You couldn't have your cake and eat it too. Qin Etian and Yi Ro were much more precious than fish and bear paws. Therefore, when Fang Yan wanted to marry Yi Ro, he would naturally hurt the other woman, Qin Etian. Qin Etian was such a proud and independent woman. Strictly speaking, she was the loser in this battle of love. Today, Yi Ro took the initiative to meet her, which naturally aroused her uncontrollable jealousy in her heart. Whether it was a woman or a goddess, jealousy was inborn and hard to get rid of. Even an excellent woman like Qin Etian couldn't help but think, why did he choose Yi Ro instead of Qin Etian? Is she really more suitable than me? Qin Etian refused to accept it. Therefore, the moment she saw Yi Ro, she had restrained and reduced her hostility. Yi Ro knew where her hostility came from, so she didn't get angry and treated it indifferently. Yi Ro's attitude angered Qin Etian even more. She found that the more she showed that she cared about Yi Ro, the more it proved that she had lost completely. Of course, this was only a battle between a few sentences. Soon, both of them returned to their normal state of interaction. Qin Etian didn't want to continue to entangle with the enemy on the battlefield where she had been defeated, so she led the topic to Yi Ro herself. She was a little curious. Yi Ro was going to marry Fang Yan. Why did she come to visit me at this time? To show off? She rejected this idea without hesitation. If Yi Ro was a woman with no self-restraint, Fang Yan wouldn't have chosen her as his life partner. Qin Etian believed in his own judgment. How could the man she fancied be bad? Qin Etian's office was excessively spacious and luxurious. There was an office area, a lounge area, a sports area, and even a music area. Usually, in addition to Qin Etian working and resting here, there were several secretaries and assistants guarding around to receive all kinds of orders from Qin Etian at any time. To facilitate the negotiation with Yi Ro, Qin Etian drove all the staff out. Even though there were only two skinny women in this 400 to 500 square meters room, it did not feel empty and desolate. This was because the aura that these two women exuded was enough to fill up this huge room. Yi Ro walked to the French window and looked down at the city. She said softly, Fang Yan is having a hard time. Only you can help him. Straight to the point. Regardless of whether she liked this woman or not, Qin Etian had to admit that she liked this woman's straightforwardness and magnanimity. If there was something to say, just say it. Squeaking and nagging would only make people annoyed. Qin Yin walked to the sofa and sat down. She picked up the banana milkshake that she had just taken a sip of. She sucked the pure white soft tube with her delicate red lips and said with a smile, Did you come for this matter? The general family's offensive is fierce. Hua Qing can't withstand it. If you were someone else, Fang Yan would ask you for help. But you are Qin Yin, so, no matter how difficult it is, he won't ask you for help, Yi Ro said softly. So, I should take the initiative to help him. Qin Etian looked at Yi Ro thoughtfully and said with a smile, How do you know that I didn't help him? I know that you have been helping him. Yi Ro looked at Qin Etian calmly, making it clear that she was speaking from the bottom of her heart. I know that you have done many things behind his back. But this is far from enough. So, what you mean is, I should drag the entire Qin family into a battle with the general family. What if the general family will suffer a crushing defeat in this battle? Qin Etienne's eyes were like twinkling stars, instantly lighting up the entire room. He asked, "What guarantee do you have?" "The Heavenly Dao Realm's heart of Heavenly Dao," Yi Rou said with certainty. After entering the Heavenly Dao Realm, one has to follow the heavens and follow one's heart. If one goes against this heart, at best, one's cultivation will no longer improve. At worst, one's realm will collapse and one will become a cripple. Qin Etienne sighed softly and said, "You should know my current situation in the Qin family. It's not up to me to make decisions in the Qin family. The influence I can bring is also extremely limited. If I could make decisions, would I need to wait for you to come to me today? The general family would have long been destroyed. I'm only telling you the outcome. As for how the Qin family will react, that will require you to convince them." Yi Rou turned around and looked into Qin Etienne's beautiful eyes. The setting sun outside the window elongated her figure infinitely. Her shadow was cast on the sofa next to Qin Etienne. Half of their bodies overlapped, and they looked like a pair of sisters who were very close to each other. "I know you're very smart. Everyone knows you're very smart. I believe that there's nothing in this world that can stop you. As long as you're willing, you can do it. It's the same for me." Qin Etienne bit his lips and snorted coldly. "Are you trying to provoke me? Bring it on." Fang Yan didn't know that the two girls were at daggers drawn in Yen capital. All his thoughts and energy were focused on the large fish tank. Ever since his master, Tianjizi, directed his attention to that big fish tank, he had never left that fish tank. He didn't eat, drink, or move. He just stood next to the fish tank, watching every change in the fish tank. He watched the black and red fish bubble, watched them stir the water in the fish tank into whirlpools, watched the calm water, and watched the ripples when the raindrops fell into the tank. Fang Yan had been standing in front of the fish tank for 3 days. No one told Fang Yan if the fish tank was the legendary treasure, Tai Chi diagram, but Fang Yan knew very well that it was the Tai Chi diagram he was looking for. What was Tai Chi? Zhuangzi said, "Above Tai Chi, it's not high, below the 6 extremes, it's not deep, born in ancient times, it's not old. Tai was big. Ji was the end, the extreme point. The fish tank wasn't big enough, and the water in the tank wasn't deep enough. It wasn't that one couldn't see the end of it. However, everything complemented each other and formed a harmonious whole. The fish benefited from the water and the fish. The fish were happy from the water and the tank. The water had a tank and the fish in the tank lived. The fish were alive and the water was flowing. With the living fish and water, the tank became lively. Some people only looked at the fish and the water, but no one ever looked at the tank. What was a tank? It was the foundation and also the core. It was the root and also the soul. It could be the round frame on the Tai Chi diagram, or it could be the inside of the black and white fish. It could be infinitely big or infinitely small. It changed with the number of fish and the depth of the water, but it also limited the number of fish and the depth of the water. It was the sea of energy of Fang Yan's Tai Chi heart, the crazily spinning core. No matter how the fish swam, no matter how the water was stirred, the core would not disperse, and the fish would not die. 1 is 2, 2 is infinite. 1 is not a number, it is nothing. It is nothing. It is infinite to begin with, so why regenerate it? Countless kinds of information were gathering in Fang Yan's mind, and countless thoughts were colliding. Some of those thoughts were in pairs, some were in groups of 3 to 5, and some were promoting and nourishing each other. Most of the time, they were in conflict with each other, killing each other to the death. The so-called Heavenly Dao realm was not a competition with others, but a competition with oneself. If one couldn't even convince oneself, how could one conquer the Heavenly Dao? When one's thoughts were clear, it was the day one could step through the door to the Heavenly Dao. Fang Yan saw a glimmer of hope, as though he could touch it just by reaching out his hand. But what he needed to do now was to first convince himself. At the courtyard's arched door, on the moss-covered stone steps, several Daoists stood silently. The leader of the group was a Daoist priest who looked extremely old. His old age was a kind of feeling. It was the kind of feeling that made people feel that he was old, that he should have experienced many hardships, and that he should be respected by everyone. However, one could not find any signs of old age on him. This was the return to simplicity that came when one's cultivation level reached its pinnacle. It could also be said to be the Daoist's spring returns to a withered tree. Behind him were a few Daoists of different heights dressed in azure-colored robes. They served behind the elder, deliberately maintaining a distance of a step from him. "How long have you been standing there?" the elder asked. "Sect Master, he has been standing there for 3 days, Divine Jizi said softly. "That means that he entered a meditative state on the 2nd day he came to Immeasurable Temple," Sect Master Taichung said in astonishment. "I heard that he and the previous Taiji diagram guardian, Mo Qingdi, were fellow disciples? How long has Mo Qingdi been staying here?" 97 days, a fat Daoist with a horsetail whisk in hand said. "Mo Qingdi was brought here by me." "All right." Sect Master Taichung wore a faint smile as he asked, "Everyone, why don't you guess how many days this child can stay in Immeasurable Temple?" Mo Qingdi is extremely talented. He has stayed for 97 days, so Fang Yan will naturally stay for more than half a year. That's hard to say. Look at him, he seems to have gained some enlightenment. Perhaps he can return in 100 days, I guess. Divine Jizi gritted his teeth and thought that since Fang Yan was his disciple, he definitely had to support him. He said, 2 months is enough. Chapter 8:27. The rain stopped and fell, and the sky brightened and darkened. The clothes on his body were soaked by the rain and dried by the warm wind. The snail on the ground climbed up to his shoes with great difficulty, but it accidentally rolled down and disappeared. Fang Yan had been standing in front of the vat for 7 days. He could not feel the wind and rain, nor could he feel the cold or hunger. His body had entered a very subtle state, like a sleeping bag filled with oxygen, or a room with burning charcoal in a world of ice and snow. It was warm, comfortable, and relaxed. At first, his thoughts were very chaotic. Countless thoughts emerged, and countless information gathered. It was clear who was the enemy and who was the friend. Small-scale fights and large-scale killings emerged one after another. When his head could no longer support itself, when he felt that his body was about to explode, everything quieted down. His mind became a sea of clouds. The white clouds drifted and changed infinitely. Then the scenery suddenly changed, and the sea of clouds turned into a boundless ocean. The ocean was divided into 2 poles, one as black as ink, and the other as white as snow. The black pole and the white pole collided with each other. The black pole wanted to swallow the white pole, and the white pole wanted to assimilate the black pole. The waves were turbulent, and the waves splashed. The 2 big fish were like helpless puppets, pushed to the white pole one moment, and then rolled to the black pole the next. Suddenly, the black pole and the white pole began to spin, and the boundless ocean became a crazily spinning vortex. The vortex spun faster and faster, and finally became a pitch-black black hole that could swallow everything. The wind howled, the rain poured, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The whole world seemed like it was about to collapse. After an unknown period of time, when everything stopped, the world returned to its tranquility. The black and white poles were torn apart, and then they slowly rotated clearly. A big fish was at the black pole, and a big fish was at the white pole. They struggled desperately, trying to break out of the cage, but no matter how hard they tried, they could not meet again. This was the power of nature, the law of the heavenly Tao. When the first ray of morning light cut through the darkness, when the beautiful bird sang its first song, when the flowers bloomed, when the dew dripped on the leaves, Fang Yan finally moved. He crossed his legs and put on an authentic Fang plum blossom stance. He bent his body slightly, opened his arms, and hugged the 2 circles. Then, a set of fluent Fang Tai Chi flowed out continuously. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow, sometimes it was as light as the clouds, sometimes it was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Sometimes she moved up and down, sometimes she was as still as a virgin. White steam rose from the top of its head, and the water in the tank was boiling. The faster Fang Yen hit, the more violently the water in the vat rolled. From time to time, Pisces would jump out of the water and spit bubbles in the air. Fang Yen sensed the changes in his dantian. The heart of Taiji, which was silent like death at times and burning like fire at other times, once again reacted. It was still hot, even hotter than it had been before. It was as if his abdomen had become a furnace, and that furnace was about to burn a big hole in his stomach. But Fang Yen clearly knew that this was a release. As long as the silent furnace was ignited, the charcoal and the fire energy left in the dantian were completely burned away, the volcano would truly be extinguished. Right now, it was in the process of burning. He was willing to bear this pain because it was benign and had hope. When Fang Yen slowed down his rhythm, the boiling water seemed to freeze, and the active Pisces sank to the bottom. The plum blossom steps were like plum blossoms. As Fang Yan's body moved, countless plum blossoms bloomed. When Fang Yen finished practicing the Fang 19 paths of Taiji and stopped his breathing, the water tank was filled with smoke, like a celestial palace. Water overflowed from the vat, and it flowed endlessly. The water overflow state. Fang Yan's eyes were closed, but there was an intoxicated smile on his face. Fang Yan's clothes were not stained with dust. Fang Yan's face was glowing. He was dressed in a green robe and looked handsome, like a banished immortal. At this moment, the worry that the Jiang family was pressing on him disappeared in a flash, and the ruthlessness from his father's tragic death completely disappeared. The sky was bright, and the courtyard was filled with birds and flowers. The snail that disappeared crawled out from the damp corner, and once again headed towards Fang Yan's shoes. Fang Yen opened his eyes. His pupils were clear and pure, and his cheeks were as tender as a baby's, as if he had just been reborn. Congratulations! An untimely voice suddenly rang out. Fang Yen turned around and looked at his Shifu, Tian Jizi, who was standing at the arched door of the courtyard. He bowed 90 degrees to him and sincerely thanked him. Thank you, Shifu, for giving me a new lease of life. The water overflows endlessly, and the vital energy never ceases. Tian Jizi looked at the water tank that was still overflowing and sighed. You have done something that no one from the Taiji branch has been able to do for hundreds of years. This is a great merit. Fang Yen smiled and said, I didn't think too much before doing this. I only thought that if I could enter the water overflow state, then I would be able to protect myself and my family better. Small things are big things. Tian Jizi stepped into the door and said, if I can protect myself and my family, then I can protect everyone in the world. Fang Yen smiled and didn't argue with his Shifu about this. He had already said that he wouldn't accept such a heavy responsibility. However, within the scope of his power, he would act against those who were evil, and he would stop those who were attacking. He didn't want to become a famous hero, but he didn't mind being a good person with a sense of justice. Perhaps his name wouldn't be engraved on the stone wall of Swallow Dock, but he would definitely be remembered by his descendants. There are so many things I didn't expect. Tian Jizi looked at Fang Yen. There was surprise in his eyes, but even more shock. When I first saw you, I didn't expect you to be able to stand here. When you stood here, I didn't expect you to enter the divinity state so quickly. After you entered the divinity state, I didn't expect you to break through so quickly. 7 days. You only used 7 days to face death and come back to life. Your body was cleansed, your thoughts became one, and you obtained the supreme Tao. Fang Yen, you are the first person in history to do so. Seeing Fang Yan's puzzled expression, Tian Jizi smiled and explained. 321 years ago, crazy Taoist priest Jing Xian used 111 days to break the ice. 239 years ago, Swift Sword Scholar used 136 days to solve the puzzle. 167 years ago, Lady Honghua of the Western region used 298 days to melt the ice. 31 years ago, Dragon God Emode used 97 days to comprehend the Tao. A few days ago, everyone was joking and guessing how long you would stay here. Some guessed half a year, some guessed 100 days. Because we are master and disciple, I always have more confidence in you. However, my answer is 2 months. Tianjizi's expression was somewhat self-deprecating. He said, I didn't expect you to not wake up after entering meditation. I visited every day and waited outside the arched door. It wasn't that I didn't have greater expectations, but I was worried that my expectations would be too high and I would be disappointed. What I didn't expect was that you still succeeded. Furthermore, you only used 7 days. Fang Yan once again bowed to his master, Tianjizi, and said gratefully, Thank you for your concern and protection, master. Without you, I wouldn't be where I am today. Tianjizi raised his horsetail whisk and said, Come with me. The sect master wants to see you. Yes, master, Fang Yan answered. The first time Fang Yan saw the sect master of Taichung, he felt a sense of familiarity. After breaking through, he could feel the depth of the sect master of Taichung's cultivation, as well as the neutral and peaceful aura he naturally exuded. This was a kind and benevolent old man with a pair of eyes that could see through everything. Standing in front of him, Fang Yan felt like he was naked and transparent, with no secrets to hide. The old man's eyes were deep and pure. His pupils were black, and the whites of his eyes were as white as paper. There was no yellowish hue, nor were there any traces of blood. His eyes didn't seem like the eyes of an old man. With a gentle smile on his face, the old man looked up and down at Fang Yan, then smiled and said, Heroes come from the young, this saying is indeed true. Fang Yan knelt down in front of the old man and spoke with a clear voice, Thank you, sect master. Get up, get up. The old man waved his hand and smiled. At my age, what I fear the most is people bowing and kowtowing to me. When others kneel, it makes me feel like I'm already very old and won't be able to live much longer. Just look, who wants to have this kind of worry? The sect master has seen through life and death. Why would he care about these superficial things? The old man shook his head, looked at Fang Yan with a firm gaze, and said, In this world, are there really people who have seen through life and death? This question really stumped Fang Yan. Whether it's the peasants, the nobles, or the emperors, or people who practice martial arts like them, who isn't afraid of death? There's no need to think about it, there isn't a single one. Those who say they aren't afraid of death are all liars. They either lie to others or lie to themselves. They are dishonest. Fang Yan nodded and said, The sect master is right. I am afraid of death. And because I am afraid of death, I work so hard to improve myself, so that I won't be bullied by bad people and not afraid of being killed by bad people. Being afraid of death is also wrong. The sect master corrected Fang Yan's thoughts. Only with loyalty can there be betrayal, only with insignificance can there be greatness. Only with spring and flowers blooming can there be ice and snow, only with death can there be life. Being afraid of death and seeking life, this is not a mistake. But, if you are only afraid of death, then it's easy to become a coward and lose your backbone. This path is absolutely not to be taken. Fang Yan bowed in acknowledgement and said, I have learned something. The sect master looked at Fang Yan and said, You've already reached the water overflow state and become a rare expert in this world. What do you want to do next? Fang Yan thought about it, then looked at the sect master with an extremely sincere gaze, and said with a powerful voice, Go home and get a wife. Chapter 828. Taiji's water overflow realm was equivalent to the inner world's heavenly Dao realm. Those who could ascend to the heavenly Dao were the cream of the crop in this world. Martial artists were like the vast stars, but those who could ascend to the heavenly Dao realm were like the moon. From the stars surrounding the moon, it was obvious how rare the heavenly Dao realm was. There were very few people in the past few centuries who could ascend to the heavenly Dao at Fang Yan's age. It was inevitable for young people to be arrogant and indulgent. After gaining insights into the great Tao and learning divine powers, they naturally had to fight and roam the world. Years ago, after Mo Qingdi succeeded in ascending to the heavenly Tao realm, he had circled the world before returning. Sect Master Taichung believed that Fang Yan would do the same. After obtaining the highest law of Taiji, he would naturally go out to show his prowess and receive victory and glory. He never expected Fang Yan's answer to be, return home to marry a wife. Was this something a young man should say? Was this something an expert who had just gained insight into the water overflow realm should say? Did he still have any desire to improve? Did he even talk about the 8 honors and 8 shames? Sect Master Taichung was taken aback for a moment as he asked with uncertainty, "Did you just say, return home to marry a wife?" Return home to marry a wife. Fang Yen was a little embarrassed. After all, this was his first time marrying a wife. He grinned and said, "A few days ago, my family arranged a wife for me. The wedding date has also been set. It's this year on the 8th of the 12th lunar month. Sect Master, if you aren't afraid of the hardships, you can come to our swallow dock for a wedding. Take it as an early invitation." Sect Master Taichung roared with laughter as he looked at Fang Yen and said, "All right, if it's convenient, I'll head to Swallow Dock for a wedding. I've already forgotten how many years it's been since I've had a drink. I really miss that taste, other than marriage." Apart from marriage? Fang Yen thought about it seriously and said, "It should be to treat Grandpa's illness. My grandpa's legs aren't good, and he hasn't been able to get out of his wheelchair for years. My master said that the Daoist's old wood meat spring can cure him, allowing him to stand up again. Now that I've broken through to the water overflow realm, I plan on attempting to treat his legs. If I can let him stand up again, it will mean a lot to me. Your filial piety is extremely valuable," the headmaster said with a gratified expression. Fang Yen, watch carefully. As Sect Master Taichung spoke, he flicked his sleeves across the teacup in front of him. The steaming hot tea instantly froze, as if it had just been taken out of the freezer. Fang Yen widened his eyes and stared unblinkingly at the hierarch's wrist. "Let's wait and see." The headmaster of Taichung said. Fang Yen saw a white light flashing in his palm, as if he was holding a lightning bolt in his palm. Sect leader Taichung's sleeves brushed past the bowl of iced tea. The ice instantly melted, and the tea was still steaming. Sect Master Taichung acted as though he hadn't done anything, but Fang Yen knew that he had done a lot. He had done things that many warriors could not do in their lifetime, including Fang Yen who had entered the water overflow realm. "Do you understand now?" Taichung Sect Master looked at Fang Yen and asked. Fang Yen nodded, then shook his head. Sect Master Taichung smiled and said, "Close your eyes." Fang Yen did as he was told. Sect Master Taichung's hand brushed past the steaming hot tea, and the tea froze. Then he brushed past the iced tea, and the iced tea melted and emitted steam again. It was exactly the same process as before. "Do you understand now?" Sect Master Taichung asked again. "Understood." Fang Yen, who had his eyes closed, said aloud, "Understanding doesn't mean you understand. Without the sun, how can there be ice? Without death, how can there be life? Without withered wood, how can there be spring?" Sect Master Taichung smiled at Fang Yen. "You can understand everything. You were able to comprehend the Grand Tao and break through to the water overflow realm at such a young age, so you will naturally understand the profoundness of withered wood returning to spring." Fang Yen bowed deeply to Sect Master Taichung and said gratefully, "Thank you, Sect Master. I didn't think you would teach me such an ultimate art. Humans are alive, ultimate arts are dead. Only when a dead ultimate art is in the hands of a living person, and it can be used to cure and save people, can it be used to its full potential. Otherwise, a human dying is like an extinguished lamp. No matter how great the ultimate art is, no one can use it. Wouldn't that be a great regret?" "You are right, Sect Master." Fang Yen bowed again to accept the teachings. In front of this old man, he couldn't make any jokes. Every word he said was something he had to listen to, and after listening, he had to seriously think about it. In the future, Fang Yen will not hide anything. I will teach everything I know to those who can, so that Hua Xia's ultimate art can be passed down from generation to generation, so that the flame of martial arts will never be extinguished. Immeasurable Heavenly Lord. Sect Master Taichung's face was full of joy. He said, "For the best." When Fang Yen came out of Sect Master Taichung's room, his master Tianjizi was waiting in the courtyard. "How is it?" Tianjizi asked. "Very good." Fang Yen didn't hide his joy in front of Tianjizi. He said, The sect master is a very kind and generous old man. HM? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen with a pensive look. He could understand kindness, but what did being generous mean? The sect master taught me the withered tree that gives spring. Fang Yen couldn't help but boast. Just like a child who got a beautiful toy, he couldn't help but want to let the people around him know about it. Tianjizi was overjoyed. He asked, "Really? Really?" Fang Yen nodded. Tianjizi's expression was solemn. He looked at Fang Yen and said, "The withered tree that gives spring is of great significance to our Taoism. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it is our Taoism's guardian treasure. Furthermore, this withered tree that gives spring was personally taught by the current sect master." "And then? You became the sect master's disciple." Tianjizi stared at Fang Yen and said, "But I am your disciple." Fang Yen said with a determined expression, "Regardless of whether the sect master is the sect master or not, I only recognize you as my master. How can I change my master just because of the difference in status? I, Fang Yen, can't do such a thing, and I don't want to do it." Tianjizi smiled bitterly and said, "But I didn't teach you the withered tree that gives spring." "That's right. Why didn't you teach me the withered tree that gives spring?" Fang Yen looked at Tianjizi with disdain and said, "We are already master and disciple. Isn't it natural for me to teach my disciple? Look at the sect master. Even though this is the first time we met, he already gave me such a great gift. No wonder the sect master was able to become the sect master. Look at his heart, his spirit." Tianjizi was about to cry from Fang Yan's questions and said, "Other than the sect master, no one else has the right to teach me the withered tree that gives spring. Why? Because the person who obtains the withered tree that gives spring will become the sect master's personal disciple. And after the sect master ascends, the disciple who has the ability to use the withered tree that gives spring will have the chance to become the sect master." Fang Yen opened his eyes wide and said, "In other words, that's right." Tianjizi nodded with absolute certainty. "Even if the sect master hands the entire sect master to you, no one will think that it's something surprising." Fang Yen was stunned for a long time, then turned around and walked into the room. "What are you doing?" Tianjizi asked. "I'm going to see if there's anything else master needs me to serve. I'm very good at serving tea and pouring water," Fang Yen said aloud. Tianjizi felt like his heart was being cut by a knife. "Didn't you say that you, Fang Yen, definitely wouldn't do such a thing, and you don't want to do it? Just what exactly are you doing right now?" Behind the red wall, the old man was leisurely drinking tea. At their level of cultivation and status, there was no longer a need to hone their muscles and bones. Instead, it was more about enlightenment. 1,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. Sometimes, a single enlightenment could surpass countless predecessors. This was the power of the heavenly axiom. Gong Sun Chi's leg injury had completely healed, and he was practicing the sword-drawing technique under the watchful eyes of his master. The last mission had made him realize his own shortcomings. A great teacher produces a great disciple. He had a master like the dragon god, and he himself was talented and intelligent, so he would definitely be the #1 expert of the younger generation. But what made him ashamed was that in that dense forest, his partner Fang Yan's performance was far better than his. Whether it was his ability to adapt on the spot, his ability to fight on the battlefield, or his perseverance and fearlessness of death, they were all beyond his reach. It could be said that if it weren't for Fang Yan's extraordinary performance, the two of them would have died in that devil's forest. The most unacceptable thing was that he was carried out of the forest by Fang Yan. This would be the shame of his life. After his physical recovery, Gong Sun Chi entered an intense period of physical recovery and hard training. He hoped that he could have a greater improvement in the shortest time possible. With a goal, one would be more motivated. "Let's stop for a while." He held the teacup and shouted. Gong Sun Chi drew his sword and then sheathed it. It was unbelievably fast, and one could not hear any sound of metal colliding during the process. Gong Sun Chi placed the sword on the sword rack and pulled a towel to wipe the sweat on his forehead. "Your opponent is Fang Yen?" The dragon god looked at his beloved disciple and asked. Gong Sun Chi was not without talent, Nor was it because he did not work hard. At his age, he had achieved such achievements in swordsmanship. It was indeed amazing. However, when comparing goods, one had to throw them away. When comparing oneself to others, it was infuriating. Yes. Gong Sun Chi did not hide his ambition in front of his master. I want to surpass him. It's very difficult, the dragon god said expressionlessly. Master, Gong Sun Chi's face was ashen. He was not angry that his master said he was not as good as Fang Yen, but he knew very well that if his master said it would be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yen, it might really be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yen. His opponent is me, the dragon god said with a smile. In other words, I am the opponent he must defeat in the end. Chapter 829. Although Gong Sun Chi acknowledged Fang Yan's ability and felt that he was not just slightly better than him, he still found it hard to accept comparing Fang Yan to his most respected master, the Divine Dragon. Master, what makes Fang Yan worthy of being your opponent? Gong Sun Chi asked bluntly. I know his skills. He's just a little stronger than me. The difference between me and Master is more than 1,000 miles. Compared to Master, he's like a grain of rice competing with the moon. He's just asking to be humiliated. Ku Fengming knew how his disciple felt. He originally thought that Fang Yan was his destined opponent, an enemy that he strived to defeat. And he had always been working hard for this goal. But now, he was telling him that it would be difficult for him to surpass Fang Yan, and that Fang Yan's opponent would be him. It was really a blow to him. I've received news that Fang Yan has obtained the Taiji diagram's heritage and has just broken through to the water overflow realm. Ku Fengming said casually, as if it was something unimportant. The water overflow is the highest esoteric of Taiji. It's similar to the heavenly Dao realm. Once he enters the realm, he'll be on the golden path. His future is limitless. What? Gong Sun Chi was shocked. How is that possible? How long has it been? How old is he? It was no wonder Gong Sun Chi was so shocked. They had just returned from a mission. At that time, Fang Yan was not too far away from him. The two of them stood on the same starting line and sprinted forward. His injured leg had just recovered, and his opponent had already stepped into another realm? It was impossible for him to catch up to Fang Yan's footsteps. He could only look up at Fang Yan's tall back. It was a feeling that made him feel helpless. A night of enlightenment can lead to a leap of 1,000 miles. How can you look at people with old eyes? Ku Fengming reprimanded. Now that he's finally grown into a towering tree, the feud between me and the Fang family will finally be continued and inherited. He wants to challenge Master? No, I want to challenge him. Shen Long said bitterly. I've been trapped in this red wall for too long. I just want to find a chance to move. But my old friends are all mysterious and hard to find. Fortunately, Fang Yan came out and gave me some motivation to move. Fang Yan had just reached the water overflow realm and was full of confidence and fighting spirit. Go meet him on my behalf and set a date for the battle. I think he'll accept. Master, even if Fang Yan breaks through to the water overflow state, he's still no match for you. Gong Sun Chi looked at his master and wanted to speak up for Fang Yan. After all, Fang Yan carried him out from the Devil Forest. When he first met Fang Yan, he felt that Fang Yan was a bastard. During that mission, he felt that Fang Yan was a good person who was a bastard. He could have left on his own. He didn't have to bring her along, but he didn't give up on her, no matter how dangerous and difficult the process of their escape was. Challenging Fang Yan at this time is an unfair fight. Why don't we give him more time? In your opinion, the longer you live, the higher your cultivation will be? Kunming shook his head with a wry smile and said, it depends on luck, will, and ambition. This was the key to victory. Of course, the strength of both sides had to be evenly matched, and the difference couldn't be too great. Don't say anything more, just do as I say. Yes, Master, Gong Sun Chi replied helplessly. Just as he was about to pack up and leave, Qing Niao pushed open the door of the small courtyard and walked in. She glanced at Gong Sun Chi, then walked straight to the front of the dragon god and said, Mr. Dragon God, Fang Yan is here and wants to see you. Fang Yan is here? Gong Sun Chi asked anxiously. He had just been talking to his master about Fang Yan and was thinking of ways to help him reject his master's challenge. Who would have thought that Fang Yan would come knocking on his door? Did he really think that he could do whatever he wanted after entering the water overflow state? Did he think that he could challenge his own master just like that? What an arrogant fellow! Qing Miao looked back at Gong Sun Chi, not understanding why he was so agitated. Fang Yan has just met the young chief and wants to see Mr. Dragon God after this. Kunming nodded and said, Fang Yan has broken through to the water overflow state, so the country should pay attention, invite him in. Qing Miao turned and left, and soon brought Fang Yan in. When Gong Sun Chi saw Fang Yan again, he found that his image and aura had indeed changed greatly. In the past, Fang Yan spoke and laughed casually, but when he was angry, he was sharp and aggressive. Moreover, his behavior was not mature enough, and he always gave off the feeling that he was trying his best to take advantage of others. Now, Fang Yan was handsome, refreshing, and looked like a beautiful landscape painting. The way he walked was elegant, the way he smiled was charming, and even if he did not say a word, people could feel his inner self-restraint and unfathomable cultivation base. Now, Fang Yan looked more amiable, but when you wanted to bully him, there was an oppressive feeling of having nowhere to exert force and being guarded against everywhere. Fang Yan, what are you doing here? Gong Sun Chi blocked in front of his master and desperately winked at Fang Yan. Hurry up and get lost, or it will be too late. Fang Yan understood Gong Sun Chi's intentions. After that life and death experience together, he also regarded Gong Sun Chi as his own brother. However, some words had to be said, and some things had to be done. Only by following one's heart could one achieve great things. The water overflow state was even more particular about naturalness. Challenging the dragon god and avenging the Azure Dragon's humiliation was the most persistent belief in his heart, and it was also the mission he wanted to complete the most. The old drunkard was not here, and challenging the dragon god had become his destiny. He would not run away, and he could not run away. I'm here to issue a challenge. Fang Yan looked directly at the dragon god's tough life, and said with a smile, It's a long-cherished wish of many years. I hope that the dragon god will be born first. The Azure Dragon turned pale with fright. She did not expect that Fang Yan would take the initiative to challenge the dragon god. Ever since the dragon god entered the Red Wall and became the Xian department's high priest, no one had dared to challenge him. Fang Yan actually dared to do such a thing. Naturally. The dragon god laughed, looked at Fang Yan and said, Fang Yan, are you so confident that you can defeat me after entering the water overflow state? I'm not confident, Fang Yan said very frankly, but I know that I'm in my best condition now. I don't know what the future holds and I don't know how far I can grow. But I feel that my body is in great shape. It's like I can kill a tiger with a punch and I can knock down a mountain with a kick. Mr. Dragon God has been famous for a long time, and his cultivation base is unfathomable, but I can't wait, and I can't afford to wait. Because I know that when I'm training hard, Mr. Dragon God is also improving. I can't wait until you're too old to swing your fist or pick up your sword before I challenge you. This is an insult to you, and an insult to me as well. It's also an insult to the old drunkard. If he knew that I did something like that, he would definitely scold me. Exchanging pointers in martial arts requires luck, courage, and willpower. I have the will to fight, I have the courage to die rather than retreat, and the rest is up to luck. My luck has never been bad, and people with bad luck would not be able to enter the water overflow state at this age. So, I want to take a gamble. When I feel that I'm the strongest, I want to challenge you. Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yan, dumbfounded, and thought to himself, this kid said the same thing as Master just said. Courage, will, and luck. That's what Master said just now. He looked at his disciple Gong Sun Chi and said, Now do you understand the difference between you two? Gong Sun Chi's face was ashen. Who would insult his own disciple's master in front of others like this? However, Gong Sun Chi could not be bothered to be angry over such a matter. He was burning with anxiety. His master was a famous heavenly Dao realm expert for many years, and Fang Yan was considered a top expert who had entered the water overflow state. In a battle with such an opponent, he would either be injured or dead, and it would be very difficult to show mercy. Moreover, because the Azure Dragon did not underestimate his enemy, Fang Yan would definitely attack with hatred. When that happened, the two of them would not rest until one of them was dead. Gong Sun Chi did not wish for his master to lose, but he did not wish for his friend to die either. In his heart, he still felt that Fang Yan, who had just entered the water overflow state, was no match for his unfathomable master. The dragon god looked at Fang Yan with a gratified expression and said, "That's how a man should be. I accept your challenge." "Thank you, Mr. Dragon God." Fang Yan bowed in thanks. When he straightened his body, he looked at the dragon god and asked, "What time does Mr. Dragon God think is suitable?" "Time is of the essence." Qianming waved his hand casually. "As long as it's convenient for you, I'll accompany you anytime." "How about 7 days later?" Fang Yan said. "Why are you in such a hurry? I'm getting married on the 8th of the 12th lunar month, so it's best if we spar before the wedding. That way, if I die, the lady still has a chance to remarry. Don't you think so?" Fang Yan was still a little selfish. He was afraid that it would be tough for him to challenge the dragon god after marriage. If he lost his life, wouldn't Yi Rou become a widow? Therefore, he put the final battle before their wedding. In this way, if he accidentally died, Yi Rou would still be a virgin, and she could still marry another handsome young man. He would feel a little uncomfortable in his heart, but as long as Yi Rou was happy, it would be fine. Qianming laughed out loud and said, "Interesting. How interesting. We'll do as you say. 7 days later, we'll fight at Feng Mountain." The time was set by Fang Yan, so he had no objections to Qianming's choice of location. "It's a promise." Fang Yan said firmly, 7 days later, we'll fight at Feng Mountain." Chapter 830. Fang Yan left, and Gong Sun Chi offered to walk him out. Under Qing Niao's stare, as if she was looking at a lunatic, the two walked towards the side door outside the red wall. "Are you crazy?" Before they got far, Gong Sun Chi couldn't help but complain. "Do you know what you're doing?" "I know." Challenging one of the 3 dragons of Wuxia, the dragon god, Fang Yan had a calm smile on his face. Gong Sun Chi didn't like this kind of expression. In the past, Fang Yan's smile was very cunning and proud, like a fox that took advantage of others. Gong Sun Chi felt even more friendly towards this kind of smile. At this time, he looked very mysterious, and no one knew what he was thinking. He was not down to earth, and naturally made people feel distant. His smile was like a constant reminder that he was now a water overflow state master, and this was the expression of a water overflow state master. "You'll die." Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yan's smiling face and said fiercely. Fang Yan looked at Gong Sun Chi and asked, "You also think I'm no match for your master? Don't you know that you're no match for him? Do you still need to ask other people's feelings about this?" Fang Yan nodded and said, "Your master has been famous for a long time, and his cultivation is unfathomable. What's more terrifying is that no one has fought him for the past 10 years, and no one knows how much he has grown. Against such a master, I really don't have any chance of winning." "Then why do you still want to do this? You can choose not to do it, or you can do it later." Gong Sun Chi anxiously tried to dissuade him. It was obvious that he was really thinking about Fang Yan's safety. Fang Yan stopped, looked at Gong Sun Chi with sincere eyes, and said, "In the past, I thought the same as you. I can choose not to do it, or I can do it later. Why do something that I have no confidence in? Why do something that disregards your own safety? I'm going to get married, and I really like the woman I'm going to marry. I want to be with her every day, and we'll have several children. That's my ideal life." Gong Sun Chi didn't say anything. He just quietly waited for Fang Yan to continue. "But I can't now," Fang Yan said with a smile. "I stood in front of a huge vat for a long time and thought about many things. There were many contradictory ideas, and those contradictory laws collided and killed each other. One side triumphed over the other, just like one country triumphed over another. I became the king of the victorious kingdom. I comprehended the heavenly Tao and stepped into the doorstep of the water overflow state. However, once you enter that realm, there's no turning back. It's just like when you become the king of a kingdom, you can no longer step down by yourself, because once you lose the protection of that position, you may be killed by the rebels. You can only brace yourself and continue forward, no matter what you encounter in front of you. You have to walk forward bravely and fearlessly. You also know about the grudge between the dragon god and the one in my family. In the battle between the two, the one in my family suffered a crushing defeat, and because his meridians were cut, he became a cripple. I grew up with him, and almost my entire life was spent with him. I could see how miserable his life was, and I could feel how sorrowful his heart was. He ate wine every day and slept with wine. That kind of life would have been better off dead. If he had died in that battle, at least he would have maintained the illustrious reputation of the Azure Dragon. However, he didn't die, and was still stubbornly living on. When everyone mentions the Azure Dragon's name, they would sigh in regret, saying that a heavenly son of heaven was destroyed in a day, but in their hearts, they were mocking his current situation. Most people would just ignore him when they saw him. Who would care about the opinion of a cripple? Can you imagine, how did he survive such a life? The Fong family is few in number, with only one son for several generations. Back when grandfather was healthy, he had dozens of disciples, and it was considered a formidable force. Later, grandfather's legs were crippled, and most of his disciples left, never to be heard from again. There were a few who stayed, but they didn't have the ability to prop up the Fong family. After the old drunkard ascended the heavenly Tao, the Fong family's reputation changed greatly. However, when he perished and became a cripple, he would receive 10 times, 100 times more mockery and blows than before. My father was killed at the entrance of the village. I was one step too late. If I had arrived earlier, I would have been able to save him. Because of this thought, I stayed in Swallow Dock to observe mourning for my father for 3 years. I felt too guilty and I blamed myself, but what was the old drunkard thinking? If his tendons hadn't been cut by your master, if he was still a heavenly Tao expert, would my father not have died? Would the Fong family not be in such a difficult situation? After my father died, he disappeared. According to the medical fanatic, he went to find some ice dragon's blood to replenish his meridians. I don't believe that such a thing exists in this world, but I hope that he does, because if that's the case, he will return. Otherwise, with his stubborn temper and proud character, he would rather be buried in that land of extreme cold than return. I always wanted to do something for him. Challenging the divine dragon was an arduous task. In the past, I only dared to think about it in secret, and was even too embarrassed to say it out loud. I was afraid that your master would hear me and kill me with his sword. I always thought, I don't believe that I can't catch up to you. I don't believe that you won't grow old, you won't grow weak, you won't die. That became a demon in my heart, a thorn in my side. In front of that huge vat, I understood. If I had fear in my heart, I would never be able to defeat your master. I would never be able to avenge the old drunkard. The Tao of man is the heavenly Tao. If you go against your own thoughts, then you will be going against the heavenly Tao. Not only will your cultivation level not improve, you might even regress, because you have a mental demon. So, you were able to ascend to the overflow realm because you made up your mind to challenge my master? Gong Sun Chi asked. Fong Yen shook his head. I was able to ascend to the overflowing state because my thoughts were clear. I understood the things that I couldn't understand before. I made my final decision on the things that had always made me waver. Of course, the reason I challenged your master was also to make my thoughts clear. If I don't do this, if I keep thinking about postponing and refusing, then I will eventually lose the courage and opportunity to challenge him. I understand, Gong Sun Chi thought for a while, then looked at Fong Yen and said, I won't give you my blessing. I understand, Fong Yen nodded. He patted Gong Sun Chi's shoulder and said, I'm already very grateful that you chased after me and told me this. But, Gong Sun Chi thought for a bit and said, I don't want you to fail either. Fong Yen squinted his eyes and smiled, then turned around and left. Clear thoughts. Gong Sun Chi looked at Fang Yan's elegant back and muttered, "Master wanted to battle you because he wanted his thoughts to be clear. You came to challenge my master because you wanted your thoughts to be clear. But do you know that the way you are doing it is making it hard for my thoughts to be clear?" The news that Fang Yan wanted to challenge the dragon god spread to a certain group of people in Beijing very quickly. Is that kid crazy? Why would he dare to challenge the divine dragon? A horse doesn't know what's good for him. With his mediocre skills, he dares to challenge the 3 dragons of Wuxia? He's far from it. There's going to be a good show. The heavenly Dao realm expert who destroyed the Fang family years ago, Mo Qinglong, probably won't show any mercy this time, right? There was a lot of discussion, but no one believed that Fang Yan could defeat the divine dragon and become the final winner of this battle. The Jiang family mansion. Jiang Shifu looked at his grandson, General Xing, who was sitting in front of him, and said, "It seems like the news is true. A few old friends in the martial world called me, and Tigris also has some connections." That brat really went to challenge the dragon god. General Xing grinned. "Grandpa, what's there to be afraid of? Isn't this good news for us?" Since Fang Yan took the initiative to issue a challenge to Mr. Dragon God, only death awaits him. If Fang Yan dies or gets injured by Mr. Dragon God's hands, our Jiang family will be able to reap the benefits. Previously, the Fang family's Mo Qingdi was crippled by Mr. Dragon God after his tendons were broken, and the Fang family was bullied and humiliated. Until now, they have not recovered. If something like this happens again, it will not be anything new. Have you thought about it? Jiang Shifu looked at General Xing with a serious expression and said, "Why does Fang Yan want to challenge the divine dragon? What makes him think that he can challenge the divine dragon? You've interacted with him many times. Do you think he's crazy? Or is there something wrong with his IQ?" I've heard. General Xing knew that the old man in front of him was angry, so he toned down his attitude and said, "Fang Yan broke through the water overflow state and became a powerhouse that can compete with the heavenly path state. If he didn't do this and didn't challenge the divine dragon, our Jiang family would have to adjust our attitude towards him. However, he's courting death by challenging Mr. Dragon. How could he be Mr. Dragon's opponent? Strangling talents is exactly what Mr. Dragon God likes to do." Jiang Shifu asked. "What?" General Xing did not understand the meaning behind his grandfather's words. If Fang Yan defeats the divine dragon, if Fang Yan wins this battle, Jiang Shifu looked at General Xing with a sharp gaze and asked, "Have you thought about what the Jiang family should do when that happens?" You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.